Welcome to the November 19th school board meeting. This meeting is now in session. I want to announce that Ms. Van Doren is unable to be here tonight due to a family emergency. And I would ask you to please rise as our Career Center Air Force JROTC cadets present the colors.
Hold. Breathe and colors. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Order. Colors. Center. Haste. Forward. March.
You may be seated. We have two recognitions tonight, and as the liaison at Campbell Elementary School, Mr. Goldstein will introduce our first recognition.
From here.
Yes, you're welcome to do it from here.
Thank you. As the liaison to Campbell Elementary School, I'm pleased to announce that recently Campbell received Expeditionary Learning, or EL, credential for excellence in character and scholarship. This recognition is awarded to schools that have attained remarkable achievement for all students, focused in three areas: student character, high-quality work, and mastery of knowledge and skills, all of which contribute to student success. Excuse me. I invite Campbell Principal Maureen Nesselrode and Christina Kyle-Smith, Regional Director from EL Education, to come forward to tell us more about this outstanding achievement. Welcome.
I don't know if we actually need this or we can use our PE voices, but I'm Maureen Nesselrode, the principal at Campbell, and this is Christina Kyle-Smith from EL, or Expeditionary Learning. And we brought some copies of the core practice manual that I'll provide for the board members. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the credentialing process, and it was a year-long process. A group of 10 to 15 staff members were part of that process, and it resulted in an online portfolio that's available on our APS website.
Does this click? Do I get through this? Okay, perfect. All right. So absolutely, Campbell did an amazing job of showcasing their growth over time and their commitment to continuous improvement in their credentialing portfolio. EL Education is an organization that partners with schools to help them fulfill their mission by using EL's core practices, which you just received a copy of, and based in our 10 design principles. Up on the slides, you can see that they are exactly what we want our students to strive for and achieve once they have finished their education and are ready to continue on in the world. Success and failure, empathy and character, solitude and reflection. And so through those processes, we do, as you noted, work to help schools redefine education and achievement to not just the idea of the test scores, but under three dimensions of achievement. Mastery, knowledge, and skills, most recognizable as our test scores and the like, but also in character and in high-quality work. because we believe that once a student leaves our schools, they are going to be judged on all three. And we want to make explicit the curriculum and the learning that happens within those three areas. So to be credentialed, you have to show growth in those areas that are really deeply rooted in your mission of your school and the uniqueness that you bring. EL is really particularly exciting because we join character to scholarship and do that by helping students and teachers instruct deeply and therefore really focus on how do we help students build work that is high quality, which is authentic, that has craftsmanship, lots of drafts, and it's okay to do it over and over again, so I get something really high quality, and that it is complex. And so our character framework surrounds this work, and our work is grounded in crew structures that help our students build collaborative learning journeys with their peers that really help them truly engage in the academic process. And through that, build a student-engaged assessment process where students are building their own knowledge around that particular piece. So the credentialing profile helps schools tell their journey towards being able to redefine student achievement amongst this process. It shows that, just as you note in this slide, Austin's butterfly, that through the continued iteration of focusing on a school's mission, they can too build something that is extremely beautiful, that continually and better and more often with different and diverse sets of students reach success and help students and teachers do more than they thought possible. Our process of partnering with schools starts with an exploration of if our partnership fits. If that, after year one, shows that it does, then we go into the deep work of building work plans that help schools and school leaders redefine their work under those three dimensions and then put practices and supports that help them fulfill their mission. And then once they get credentialed, we go into a smaller lift, but still just being a continuous thought partner, but also leaning on them as a part of our network to help showcase this work outside of your school to other schools. Our credentialed schools often and always outpace our districts and our state in the regular conversation, but when you get into the school and you look at the high quality work, you see that it is truly not just the idea of teaching to a test, but really authentically getting to the heart of learning for students. So we are beyond excited at EL Education to fold Campbell into our national portfolio of credentialed schools, which means that I get to ask Maureen to open her doors to teachers from all across the country and even growing more across the world to help people understand how to do more, better, in an easier fashion for teachers to be able to serve all students of different types. Maureen and Campbell help us really get to the heart of how do we do this with really diverse populations. How do we differentiate this for students who have exceptional learning needs, who are multilingual learners? How do we do this? Schools are in a turnaround fashion to then outpace their district when being set at the bottom of their rank. How do we do it in a public school district setting? And then how do we bring to life an amazing outdoor learning space that is really vetted on social emotional learning, but also in an urban experience? And so we have this really unique, beautiful partner in Campbell that we're excited to showcase more often.
Within the mastery of knowledge and skills, as Christina mentioned, test scores and other typical metrics are used to show that schools are outperforming their counterparts, in our case, outperforming other Title I schools in the district. And the ways that we get to that are through good instruction, some of that through the EL model, and some of it through best practices. So for example, the workshop model, intervention and extension, curriculum mapping across content areas, focusing on deeper learning with all of our students, and focusing on student engagement and stamina. Uh-oh. Around character, we spend a lot of time at Campbell explicitly teaching about character and highlighting students and staff who exhibit the Campbell way, which are the core principles. We highlight staff, for example, through the Golden Apple. We have students leading community meeting. We use students as ambassadors at school events. This these type of experiences allow students to have strong public speaking skills and have confidence as they head into middle school. We have been using a standard-based report card for 7 years, a little-known fact. We're often kind of ahead of the curve. We also use a portfolio and have used student-led conferences for several years as well. We have recently been highlighted by APS for our anti-bullying prevention program, which we call the Upstander program, which really focuses on giving students resiliency and skills that they can use in bullying situations to support their classmates. Christina mentioned multiple drafts and other things that we do to support high-quality work at Campbell through the EL model. We actually analyze work several times a year to look at authenticity, complexity, and craftsmanship. And some examples of student work are provided. And we have also integrated that with the TC writing units of study, which adds an extra layer of complexity at Campbell. As Christina mentioned, our outdoor learning program is woven in with expeditionary learning. And so we, all EL schools focus on social advocacy. And at Campbell, that looks like environmental stewardship is really our main social justice angle, if you will. And so we really focus on students being one with nature, being mindful of the earth, and advocating for the healthiness of the environment. Looking back at our over a year spent on credentialing, it was a great opportunity to strengthen our partnership with EL, to look at what we can bring to the EL partnership and what kinds of areas we can offer PD to other schools in the EL network of schools. To look at our progress over time, both through our test scores and also, thankfully, we were able to use a lot of, since we are a very data-oriented public school system, we were able to pull a lot of data, like report card data on character and topics like that that were very helpful in the process, and really look at our progress over time in some of those areas, in addition to achievement data. And also, as a leadership team of teachers, we really spent a full year working together, drafting, revising, editing each other's work. We have Erin Watson, who's here, was a member of the credentialing team. And we really were able to identify what our vision was for Campbell and sort of tighten that up over the course of the year as well, and highlighted in the online portfolio.
And in doing so, they really worked hard to also name what are their next steps and how they continue to work. And so if you've been to Campbell, then I think you would agree with previous President Barack Obama, who said, going to one of our schools in New York, this kind of innovative school is the example of how all of our schools should be. Thank you.
Thank you.
And also thank you to the members of the school board and senior staff who attended the credentialing presentation. It was over 2 hours, as sort of a dissertation defense is how I would best describe it. And we had many members of the team were here to support us, so we do appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Principal Nezzelrod, for presenting tonight, and for Ms. Kyle Smith for traveling to be with us today to really recognize what Campbell has achieved. I was at the credentialing process, and it really was extraordinary to be a part of. So thank you for allowing us to do that. And really, again, thank you for being here and really showcasing the work that you're doing, and for what has happened tonight. And colleagues, do you have any comments or additional congratulations? Okay. Oh, did you want to say something, Mr. Wilson?
Just wanted to offer my additional congratulations. I was able to be at least part of the credentialing process, and it was very, very impressive. So I keep calling Campbell a hidden gem, and I just hope more and more people are going to spend some time taking a look at it and understanding what, the gem really is.
think EL has definitely made sure that we have a national name within the EL network, and have sent numerous people from other schools and dignitaries to come visit the school.
Well, it's wonderful. I'm so excited to hear what's happened with Campbell, and we would like to take a picture if that is okay. So if you could come forward for a picture, that'd be great. And thank you again for being here tonight. Are there any other Campbell team members or parents or students? Please come.
Would you like to come join us? She's here for a different topic. There you go.
Tiny, can you slide over just a little bit? Which way? There we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Congratulations again to the entire Campbell community on this great accomplishment. And I'd now like to introduce Ms. Ingrid Gant for her second recognition. She is the president of the Arlington Education Association, and she'll be presenting a resolution for the Education Support Professionals Day. Ms. Gant.
Excuse me. Good evening to Tanya Talento, the chair, school board members, Cynthia Johnson, interim superintendent, executive leadership team, and all those assembled. My name is Ingrid Gant. I am the president of the greatest union there is, the Arlington Education Association. Tonight is my pleasure to bring to you a proclamation that AEA has written. We hope that next year the school board may, in fact, do a resolution of your choosing to make sure that when we're honoring the American Education Week, that we look at our ESPs as well. We know we recognize our educators in the month of May, but during the month of November, our educators and ESPs are also represented. So a little history behind this movement. In 1987, the National Education Association, which is made up of the AEA and the VEA, the State Representative Assembly, called for a creation of a way to honor public schools support staff. The National Education Support Personnel Day was established and celebrated that same year. Since then, it has been observed on Wednesdays during American Education Week. NEA's National Council of Education Support Professionals campaigned at the 2002 Representative Assembly, and I was there, to charge ESP's formal name from their formal name to the education support personnel to what we know today as education support professionals. We call them ESPs. The name change reflects the pride in the essential role that the ESPs play in creating public schools for every student. Cynthia Johnson, our interim superintendent, has already made it known to the Arlington Public Schools community that we kick this off on Monday with a kickoff day. Today is Parents' Day, so we should be honoring our parents, because without them, none of us would be here. Tomorrow is, in fact, the Education Support Professionals Day, which includes your own clerk. And so we hope that you're doing something special for Claudia and Melanie tomorrow. And parents at home, if you see your bus drivers and your admin assistants, your cafeteria workers, Anybody that's outside of the classroom without the title of a teacher, even though we all are educators, please recognize them tomorrow. Thursday will be Educator for a Day. Some places around the world have allowed students and other adults to come in to teach, and we know substitutes are here. And then on Friday, we're recognizing our substitutes for that day. I would ask that you please stand for the reading of our proclamation, and all AEA members, please come forward at this time.
Whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious value of freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas education support professionals are integral to the education process. And
whereas education support professionals provide a safe and healthy learning environment for students, and whereas education support professionals work tirelessly to serve our children and community with care and professionalism.
Now therefore, I, Ingrid Gant, serving as the president of the Arlington Education Association, do proclaim Wednesday, November 20th, 2019, any other third Wednesday following the years to come in November, that third Wednesday before Thanksgiving, recognized as a National ESP Day, and recognize and acknowledge the importance of education support professionals in our public schools, our colleges, and our universities. Signed this 19th day of November 2019. You guys are my witnesses. This would be given a seal, and it would be posted in our office, but our own ESP chair, the person that sits on our board, Regina Richardson, would like to make a presentation at this time.
Mr. Tanya Talento, can you come forward, please? Present this to the board.
And they come down.
Okay. We would like to present the board with this. This is our proclamation, so that you guys can have that. Okay? And think of us when you see that.
Can you guys come forward and take a picture with us, please? May we take a picture with our school board at this time? Claudia, we want you in the picture.
Ms. Gant, we would like to make a couple of comments. Oh, yes, ma'am. And so,
I'm sorry, it's hard
yes, because then
not,
we can take the picture and move through the
it's hard
board
not to
meeting.
chair, I'm sorry.
Well, you know, when we take a picture, then everyone disperses, and so I did want to just take the opportunity to say, thank you so much for taking the time to do the presentation to honor our support, I'm going to get this right, education support professionals. Okay, I couldn't remember the first one. We really appreciate it. We recognize how hard our staff work here and how a lot of our support professionals, our education support professionals, are sometimes our unsung heroes. So thank you for honoring them. Thank you for the proclamation. We will put that up in our board office, and we appreciate you doing the presentation. The school board doesn't really do resolutions or proclamations, but the fact that you were able to put this together and honor our staff today with this presentation, we're very grateful. And thank you for doing that. And thank you to all of our education support professionals for all the work that you do, for dedicating yourselves to our students and our system. We are very, very much grateful and appreciative. And colleagues, I don't know if you wanted to add any comments before we go down for a picture. Okay. Dr. Kennedy.
Sure, I don't think I could top what you just shared, Ms. Talento, but just to say that it really has been a priority for our interim superintendent, this board, and our school system to ensure that everyone who works with our students is seen as an educator, and we really, truly appreciate how everyone takes that on in our school system. It's one of the things that keeps us strong, so thank you.
Thank you. Just one last comment. I know I don't have to talk after the chair. I beg your personal privilege. You can't tell who's an ESP, and you can't tell who's a T-scale.
No.
Because we're a wall-to-wall union, and that's how it should be. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And, let's go down for a picture.
Yeah, you should have that maybe. Do you want to stand next to him? There we go. There you go.
Are there any other support professionals in the audience by chance tonight?
One, two.
So we are now at announcements. This week, November 20th through the 22nd, board members will attend the Virginia School Board Association Annual Convention in Williamsburg, Virginia. And that is why we are holding our meeting this week on Tuesday instead of Thursday. On November 25th, we will hold a closed meeting of the School Board Selection Advisory Committee at 7:30 p.m. in the board conference room. And on December 3rd, we will have a joint school board county board work session at 6:30 p.m. in the county boardroom at 2100 Clarendon Boulevard. Colleagues, are there any announcements? Mr. Goldstein?
I do not.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm sorry, because we shifted to a Tuesday meeting, it kind of threw me off with seeking announcements from my liaison schools, so this week I don't have any.
Okay.
I can tell you that Campbell
Was recognized today?
recognized it in the credentialing process, yeah. I could give you more details on that, but you probably already know. Next meeting, I'll have
Next meeting, you'll have
I'll
a
more
double dose for us.
announcements, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein. I do always appreciate the efforts that you make to get the wonderful things that are happening at your liaison schools. I know that that takes effort because I have attempted to do that unsuccessfully and gave up after a couple of unsuccessful tries. So I have left that wonderful work to Mr. Goldstein and just feel bad when I'm not holding my own with my own schools. But I figure he'll rotate through all of the schools eventually, and we will get that done. So thank you for sharing that. And colleagues, any other announcements? Okay, I would like to take an opportunity to again provide a brief update on the superintendent search process. It is the same update that I've been providing because we are still in the process of the evaluation. So we have again received a number of proposals from search firms, and we have begun the evaluation process and are in that process, and we are still on track for awarding the contract later this month or in early December. And we are now at the interim superintendent's announcements and updates. Ms. Johnson.
So, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here and to provide superintendent updates. I'd like to start by reinforcing the message that was made earlier by Ingrid Grant, and that was there were some key highlights that were given there. But this is American Education Week. We've been speaking about the importance of everyone in this journey of educating young people. So this is a chance to celebrate public education and to honor our individuals who are making a difference in ensuring that every single student receives a quality education. So again, I'll just share that during the week we have something that is highlighted every single day, and tomorrow on Wednesday is Education Support Professional Day. So again, I hope that we will acknowledge and celebrate the individuals that play this critical role. And Thursday is Educator Day and Substitute on Friday. As a reminder, we have our annual APS calendar survey, and it's now available online. APS does want to invite all our families and staff to submit their input regarding the draft calendar. And this is for the 2020-21 school year. and it will be open until Friday, November the 22nd. And I'd like to ask Mr. Redding if he'd like to provide some additional information.
There are 3 draft calendars available online, so families, staff, and students can review them and provide input in the survey, their thoughts. The final calendar that the superintendent will recommend to the board may look different from all 3 of those, but be based on one of those and incorporate some of the community feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Redding. I've been really saying a lot about our winter weather procedures and going to different meetings and asking everyone to please review the information that's provided online as it relates to the winter weather procedures. And this is all in preparation for the inclement weather that may impact the school calendar. I was at the County Council PTA meeting the other night, and I said I'm not sure if the reason I'm giving a lot of attention to this is in part because of the role I'm presently in. But again, please help us to get the word out and to encourage all families and staff to review the APS winter weather procedures. This is information about closing, delay openings, and early dismissal. All the families did receive a letter with updated materials and helpful reminders, and that information went out on November the 8th via School Talk. So those materials will remain available on our website, and that information is available in English and in Spanish. So please visit also the emergency alert page on the APS website to learn more. This year, as we do every year, we celebrate and honor the work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and we do that through the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Literary and Visual Arts Contest that we will kick off tomorrow. This year, students in various K through 12 age groups will be asked to share through art or words why peace is important to them, what it looks like, and the impact it has on society. This contest will launch on Wednesday, again tomorrow, November the 20th, and all entries are due on by Friday, December the 20th. You'll find additional details posted on our website, and it's also noted here on our slide. So for more information, you can also contact Don Smith in our School and Community Relations Department. So we have a lot that we celebrate in November, and the whole notion of giving thanks is a critical piece of it. And you can see here that we want to wish everyone a wonderful Thanksgiving break. And just a few more reminders during the month of November. We have our elementary report cards that are going to be made available Friday, November the 22nd. And again, we have no school on November the 27th, 28th, and 29th. Wishing everyone a wonderful Thanksgiving break. So I think many were aware of the campaign to visit the 42 schools, and moving on to the next goal and chapter, it's about all our students. So APS, all 4 APS students. And what you see here are just some pictures that were recently taken or taken sometime during the journey on interacting with students. I started my interim superintendency with 3 key words: students, students, students. It continues to be about connecting with students at each school, site, and program. And for the next 42 days, I hope to engage in conversation with students about what a trusted adult looks like and how they know that they can trust an adult, or what it looks like to have someone that you can talk to and share your concerns and problems. I do hope to come back and share what I'm learning from our very own students about positive relationships. And what you see here is an example of a visit to one of our elementary schools, and every morning they start their day with somebody who greets them at the door. I was invited to be a mystery greeter, and basically the students at the door can make a decision about whether they want a hug, a fist bump, or a boogie dance. And that represents choice and voice for our students, but it also sends a very important message about a good beginning to the school day. And then, of course, to the right is a recent activity I was involved with our PEP students at the Career Center, who are in the process of producing a video. So it is wonderful to spend time with our students. You see the information here, something we share with you regularly, and it's pertaining to the school board action plan. So again, the priorities for the board are listed here. I want to give you some information as an update to the advertisement for the position of Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. The position has been advertised for 4 weeks. The HR department has been reviewing application, and they are in the process of engaging various stakeholder groups. We've heard some great input and received some feedback related to the position and what some of the desired characteristics in the applicants might be. And we hope that we will be able to look at all of this and apply it to the process. So again, this information is helpful to the interview process and to the questions that we might formulate for our candidates. Again, I'd like to ask Mr. Redding if he'd like to provide any additional information.
Absolutely. There is a survey available on the Engage website, and citizens, staff, and students can provide input on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. That survey is live until December 2nd, and that will support us as we move through the interview process. The interview panels will incorporate stakeholders from among staff, students, and advisory groups to help us obtain feedback as we consider the candidates.
Thank you. So here in 2018, APS partnered with the Arlington Partnership for Children, Youth, and Families, and at that time conducted the first Your Voice Matters survey. This survey took the place of 3 separate surveys in order to consolidate these efforts and to get input from our students, our staff, and families. The Your Voice Matters survey will be conducted every other year, and the second survey is coming up in 2020. So this will be administered in January, from January through February of 2020. So staff will begin communicating about it soon, so that the community has advance notice about this, and we hope to get strong participation from all our stakeholders, so that the results will guide future decisions. Staff has been meeting with various represented stakeholder groups to also get more feedback that is going to help to draft the questions for upcoming surveys. This next slide speaks to the elementary school planning process. Presently, there are 2 proposals that staff has prepared, and that is going to be presented and taken to take a county-wide approach and would move some elementary schools to other buildings, including both neighborhood and option schools. The proposals aim to keep together as many students in each school as possible and to keep as many students as possible walking to their neighborhood school. These initial proposals may change as staff continues to review community input. Any moves that are adopted would be made in September of 2021, when new boundaries will go into effect. So staff will present the final proposal to the school board on January 9th, 2020, after which there'll be public hearing on January the 30th, and then plans for school board action on February the 6th. Community engagement on this planning process got started with an online information session in English and in Spanish, so that all elementary school families can get the same consistent message. Outreach to date has also included a video, an infographic, school talk messages, and more information. Information is available at the Engage site in English and in Spanish, and there are maps, a timeline, and frequently asked questions that are updated regularly. Information has been presented in person to APS school ambassadors, PTA presidents, and other community leaders. Staff has also been attending meetings of community-wide organizations, including the APS advisory groups. internal staff groups, the county council PTA, civic federations, and more. There is an online community questionnaire that is available right now. We've heard some concerns about the questionnaire and want to remind community members that if they prefer, they can use the online feedback form available at apsva.us engage or write to engage@apsva.us. And that way they can share their ideas, questions, and provide input. If you do have comments on the questionnaire, you can provide them in the comment portion once the other questions have been completed. Last Friday, Facebook Live video frequently asked questions session was popular, and there will be another on this Friday, November the 22nd, and we do encourage people to tune in. There are also 3 upcoming in-person community meetings. They're planned shortly after Thanksgiving. The dates, time, and locations for these in-person meetings are available online, and we do encourage families to attend one of them, ask questions, and engage in the process. In the meantime, frequently asked questions are being updated on an ongoing basis to address questions we are receiving. I'd like to share just an additional note that staff has provided printed questionnaires to bilingual family resource assistants at each of the elementary schools and have posted links to the printed questionnaire on the Engage page. These can be delivered to the front office of any elementary school by the morning of November the 25th. So this slide provides a little bit of an update as it relates to the budget. We are in the process of developing the budget based on the school board's budget direction. The full budget development calendar is available online. The budget, and that would be located on the Budget and Finance webpage. These are some of the key dates that you see noted here, and we will continue to keep you informed and update the calendar as the process progresses, leading up to the February 27th presentation of the superintendent's proposed budget. I'll share a little bit of information pertaining to construction, and I'll ask Mr. Chadwick if he'd like to add anything. So construction is underway at the Reed Building. Staff continues to prepare for construction and the start on the Education Center next April. Both projects are presently on schedule and expected to be completed before the start of the September 2021 school year. And this slide shows community members how to stay up to date online with online information, and it provides information about the timeline and the status of the design and construction project. Mr. Chadwick, would you like to add?
I would just like to add that residents of the Westover neighborhood and anybody who drives by will notice that there's already been substantial progress at the Reed site.
So thank you for that. And the second to the last slide just really reminds us all of the work that the school board is doing on new policies and policy revisions. So we encourage everyone to stay tuned. And again, please continue your involvement and engagement with APS Engage. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson, for the updates. Colleagues, are there any questions or comments? Mr. Goldstein?
Yeah, I just have a question. Just trying to get a little clarity. Can you go back to the community engagement slide for the boundary process? I think it's after that.
One more?
That
It's either
one.
this one?
Yeah, no, go back one. No, sorry.
Go forward.
Forward, sorry.
There you go.
Okay, so I just wanted to understand that you said there were 3 community engagement events following Thanksgiving. So December 9th is one of them, community engagement at Swanson, And then December 10th, community meeting at Central Library, and then December 16th, community meeting at Kenmore in Spanish. Those are the three that you were referring to?
And so I'm going to turn to my staff for confirmation.
Okay. All right, 9th, 10th, and 16th. And the 16th is in Spanish. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Are there no other questions or comments? Thank you for the presentation and the information. We appreciate it. So we are now at our consent agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 4-0. I'd like to announce that under consent, the board reappointed Christina Diaz-Torres to the Joint Facilities Advisory Commission. We appreciate Ms. Diaz-Torres and the many community members who take the time to serve on our advisory groups. And I thought I saw her here this evening, so thank you for doing the work on the JFAC. We really appreciate it. She also serves on our Budget Advisory Committee. Also, I'm pleased to announce that the board appointed Shana Curtis as principal of the Eunice Kennedy Shriver Program. Would you please stand? Thank you, Ms. Curtis. If you would remain standing, I would appreciate it. Ms. Curtis has worked as a special education teacher and has also served in several different administrative roles. Most recently, she has been an assistant principal at Gunston Middle School. As assistant principal, she has supported instructional staff through modeling, observing, providing feedback, and supporting teacher reflection. Ms. Curtis also has extensive experience in planning instruction that promotes accessibility and includes differentiated approaches to learning as well as research-based instructional strategies. With a passion for ensuring equitable practices, she works to broaden perspectives and meet the needs of diverse learners, and she is skilled in preparing, facilitating, presenting professional development. We are excited that Ms. Curtis is ready to take on this new leadership opportunity at the Eunice Kennedy Shriver Program. Congratulations, Ms. Curtis. And do you have any friends or family here to support you this evening?
Yes, I have my husband and two of my children, my daughter Lauren and my son Aaron. My oldest son is at college.
Excellent. Yep, and I see that Principal Wiggins is here. Thank you for being here this evening as well. Dr. Wiggins and Carl Stewart. Okay, great. You know, I don't always see all of our principals out there, but I'm so grateful when they take their time to join us this evening. So thank you for being here and supporting Ms. Curtis in her new leadership role. And I know that the Eunice Kennedy Shriver Program will thrive under your leadership. They are very wonderful students in that program, and working with HB Woodlawn, it'll be a wonderful experience. So thank you for doing that. We're excited about that work. And we will now hear citizen comment on non-agenda items. Before the speakers begin, I will review the speaker guidelines. The school board welcomes public comment and allows comment at most regular board meetings. If you would like to speak but have not signed up electronically, you must submit a speaker slip to the clerk before the agenda item you wish to speak on is called. Speakers are called in the order in which they sign up. However, if there are students who have signed up to speak, we invite them to speak first so they do not have to stay out too late on a school night. Each speaker may speak up to 2 minutes, and there is a timer to help you keep track of your time. The timer begins when the speaker starts speaking, and you should conclude your remarks when the buzzer sounds. To ensure everyone has an opportunity to speak, the board has established the following guidelines. Any person with a disability who needs accommodation to provide public comment is requested to contact the school board office in advance of a meeting to request assistance. Any person who would like to have an interpreter provided to assist them is asked to contact the school board office in advance, and we will make every effort to provide interpretation. If a speaker addresses the board in any language other than English and has an interpreter, and you can bring your own interpreter if you are not able to call us in advance. So if you do have an interpreter, whether it's through the system or through your own efforts, the speaker will have 2 minutes to speak, and the interpreter will have up to 2 additional minutes to translate the comments for the board. All comments should address matters related to the Arlington Public Schools. Speakers should be courteous and address your comments to the entire school board. Generally, board members do not respond to public comments at meetings. If you have written comments, please give them to the clerk to distribute to the board. We ask the audience to refrain from applauding as that takes time away from our speakers, but you can applaud in sign language. And please be sure to state your name when you begin. And I think we do have some community members who will be speaking to us in different languages during this boundary process. And so if you want simultaneous interpretation, then you'll be allotted a total of 4 minutes. Some speakers will choose to speak in their own language and then have the interpreter interpret. And in that case, it'll be 2 minutes each. But just so you know, to be fair for everyone, and we hope that is clear, and we're happy to answer any questions if you have regarding those at a later time during open office hours. You can call our office staff or after the board meeting. Okay, thank you. So, Ms. Mercado, do we have any speakers this evening?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
The first speaker, Joseph Littman Santa Cruz.
Good evening. My first name is Joseph. My last name is Lightman Santa Cruz. I strongly believe that every child throughout Arlington County has every chance to achieve their God-given potential. And that is why this evening, it is my honor to be speaking before you to request 3 simple yet innovative solutions with regard to the traditional model at Arlington Traditional School. Together with my wife, we're the proud parents of 2 awesome kids, Chloe, who is a 3rd grader at ATS, and Ari, who hopefully will be an ATS student in the school year 2021-2022, so he better be ready. ATS plays a fundamental role within the richness of the diversity that makes APS and Arlington County a great place to live and to thrive. There are 3 components. 1, I'm kindly requesting that you please maintain the traditional school at ATS. Second, we need to be celebrating and emphasizing the richness of the racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic diversity that makes the ATS community one of the greatest in the county. And the third one is we need to be celebrating how diverse the educational models that enable our students to thrive and to be empowered to live a better life. And one of the key components that ATS offers is civic citizenship. The key role and the key lessons that my daughter has learned to be a proactive member of our society is one that needs to be celebrated. And that is why my wife and I and our family strongly recommends and requests that the traditional model be retained and be maintained and be increased in Arlington County. Thank you.
I ask again that you please do that, because what happens is we will be here till 11:30 or midnight with a lot of school board business. And while I appreciate the support, you can stand. That is a very visual way to show us that there's strong support. Let me tell you, when you wave your hands like this, it just is a wave of hands, but it really does refrain and take away from our time and other speakers' time and make the business and our staff stay very longer hours. So we really want to hear everybody and allow our clerk to move forward with speakers so that we're respecting everyone's time and opportunity. So we appreciate your support, but you can stand or applaud in sign language. We'd be very grateful for that collaboration. Ms. Mercado, the next speaker, please.
Okay, and to make the process go faster, I will call the next 3 speakers, and if they can line up by the door, please. Zaylene Rahim, Dina Caputo, and Katerina Lysandric.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Zaylene Rahim. Last September, my then 4th grader was offered a spot at Arlington Traditional. She had been on the wait list since kindergarten, and we literally felt like we'd won the lottery with her admission to the school. One of the first remarks she made after about a week at ATS was, "Mom, I can learn here. The kids are actually listening and not misbehaving, and I can hear the teacher and I can learn." I now have a 1st grader, Isha, at the school, and I see firsthand how their emphasis on daily homework, their emphasis on reading and math, and respect for their classmates, their teachers, and the curriculum leads to an environment where children learn very well. This is proven by ATS's excellent test scores, which shows that the school does what very few other schools in this country have been able to do. ATS has figured out how to close the opportunity gap for all students, regardless of their socioeconomic background. Kids come to ATS from all over the county and are treated with the same respect and appreciation, and they achieve academic success. The school's diversity is viewed by students and faculty alike as the strength that it is. I fear that moving ATS away from its current central location to the western edge of North Arlington would impact the ATS community, making it no longer an option for some students living in further parts of the county. As a result, I worry that the school's rich diversity would be impacted. I feel fortunate every day to have my children attend ATS, and I truly value the educational model that it offers. Thank you for your consideration and for your time and for the care you're putting into our children's education.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you, audience. I really appreciate that.
Next speaker, Dr. Dina Caputa.
Good evening. My name is Katerina Lysandric, and I'm here to strongly object to the proposed move of Arlington Traditional School from here on referred to as ATS to the McKinley site or any other site that is not centrally located in the county. I have a second grader and a future kindergartner at ATS, and we live in Fairlington in South Arlington. In your documents, APS expressed commitment to provide its residents a blend of neighborhood and option schools with equitable access to all students. With these proposals, you are solving the neighborhood problems by punishing families that choose or chose option schools. Moreover, in displacing Key Immersion, Campbell, and ATS, you're responding to the needs of Key Immersion community by bringing it closer to the Spanish-speaking neighborhoods, but you're tone deaf to the needs of ATS. Students can come to ATS if space is available at every stage of their elementary school journey, unlike the Montessori and immersion programs. Why should Key have the central location when there already is another immersion school, Claremont, and their wait list is only 187? The current ATS location is burdensome to my family. But thanks to the central location, ATS attracts students from all socioeconomic, racial, and ethnic groups. In total, 42% of ATS students live in economically diverse South Arlington. ATS is a great equalizer, and it is closing the achievement gap. The proposed move to a rich and predominantly white neighborhood school with no capacity to receive our current 13 buses would destroy ATS community as we know it. But decisions can't be made without data. Why hasn't APS already commissioned an independent transportation feasibility study that is available to us? We would welcome an increase of students at ATS from current 539 to 639 students, but our wait list would still be 548 students seats deep.
Thank you for your comments. You can provide any written comments to the clerk, and she'll share them with us.
Thank you.
Okay, the next three speakers, Melanie Mickelson-Graham, Kelly Gilselman, Paula Medina.
Good evening, and thank you for the privilege of speaking. My name is Melanie Mickelson-Graham, and I'm a room parent for my kids. I have 4 sons, 5th, 3rd, kindergarten, and then an incoming kindergartner in the year 2021, so I've maxed out the sibling preferences. I'm speaking tonight about the Elementary School Planning Community Questionnaire, which is available in English and in Spanish. ATS does have a majority-minority student body, and our largest group of minorities are not Spanish-speaking. For example, I was in my kindergartner's class today, and I calculated that 31 out of 46 parents are not native speakers of English, and many of these feel uncomfortable with English. Only 2 of these parents are native Spanish speakers, and the rest do not have equal access to shape their children's future education. For the second questionnaire that will be from December 9th through 18th, my class and others in Arlington need a greater variety of languages, including Amharic, Mongolian, Arabic, and more, to give you a complete community reply and more ideas of how to solve our problems. An additional concern many ATS parents have about the questionnaire is its reference to the Instructional Program Pathways, or IPP. The current IPP is a draft, and it was not approved by the school board, but it's used as a framework and even a reference in this questionnaire. In the draft IPP, dated September 3rd, 2019, the staff recommends eliminating a traditional model of education from APS's option programs. Using this unapproved IPP creates a questionnaire biased against preserving ATS in spite of APS needing to spend less per student at ATS than in the county average, and in spite of a high demand for a traditional education. We have 648 students on the wait list, and for some perspective, that's 364 more than the second highest wait list, and that doesn't include the 104 students on the VPI wait list. So my questions and the questions of other ATS students are, why is there a highly demanded money-saving traditional model not recommended in the draft IPP? And why is an unapproved draft IPP being used in current decision-making and public questionnaires? So please consider. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Next speaker, Kelly Gisselman.
Arlington Public School Board members, my name is Kelly Gisselman, and I'm currently a walkable unit at the McKinley Elementary School and parent of 3, and am pleading with you to save McKinley as a neighborhood school. Many of the best years of my children's lives have been in this building despite the overcrowding. I attribute this to the resilience and amazing program that McKinley has established. I feel you need to honor the commitment made to McKinley years ago that once Reed opens, this overcrowding will resolve. If you change McKinley to an option school, you will unfairly push McKinley walkable population to other overcrowded schools, thus not making good on a promise to these parents and communities. I have the following suggestions. Your biggest problem seems to be key in the Roslyn area overcrowding. Solution 1, open another neighborhood school in this area to fix the future problem. If we could identify a building now, it could be ready for the future. Fairfax County has opened elementary schools and abandoned office buildings. Could this be a solution for a new elementary school site? This allows all schools to stay where they are. Solution 2, have key in really all option schools except walkable units without a lottery or application need. This opens up spots to help with the overcrowding problem and would help to minimize busing needs. If parents don't want to go to their walkable school, then they have the option to apply to option schools or other under-enrolled schools. Again, this keeps all schools where they are. Solution 3, move key to the least walkable school in the Arlington area once you redistrict for Reed. Redistrict first, then make this determination with new proposals on the table for discussion. This keeps Arlington green by minimizing the need to switch walkers to bus riders. With this solution, again, allow neighborhood walkers to go to option schools without lottery or application need. McKinley will lose some students to Reed. Let's then right-size this school for its capacity and maybe consider options like opening up a 6th grade into this building to fill those spots. This would help the Swanson overcrowding problem. Keeping McKinley a neighborhood school could also provide APS the opportunity to expand the preschool initiative. Thank you so much for your time and work on this.
Thank you for your comments.
Next speaker, Paula Medina.
Dear board members, my name is Paula Eguino Medina, and I am the mother of a first grader at Arlington Traditional School. I decided to speak here tonight because I attended a town hall meeting with a board member at ATS and left very concerned and confused as I got the feeling that APS is not fully supportive and committed to ATS and the traditional program. This was deeply concerning to me as I've seen my son, a transfer from another APS option school, thrive in ATS in the few months he's attended. And this is, without a doubt, thanks to ATS and the traditional model. But I am worried about this apparent lack of commitment to ATS and the traditional program, not just because of my son and my family personally, but also because of what this will mean to the significant body of ATS students from minority communities and challenged socioeconomic backgrounds, who continuously blossom and have done so for years through this program. I am personally worried about APS not supporting and even considering doing away with a school and a program that helps kids in need so effectively, closing the learning gap through constant engagement of kids and their families in a true and meaningful way. What ATS does for kids, especially those from challenged socioeconomic backgrounds, is priceless, and in my opinion, it should not just be celebrated, but replicated. Finally, as a Spanish-speaking family, we are incredibly happy and proud to be part of such a diverse and inclusive community. In just a few months, my son has attended this school. We've met families from Ethiopia, China, Mongolia, Mexico, and Costa Rica, just to name a few. I hope you will give due consideration to these concerns about ATS, as these are shared by many Arlington parents and students alike. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Next speaker, Yasmina Hassoun.
Good evening, Chair Talento and school board members. My name is Yasmina Hassoun. I have 3 children in 3 different schools at ABS. I know that Arlington is a very diverse place, and ABS is so diverse as well. But the problem is, it is divided between north and south. Most of the option schools are divided as well between the north and the south, which doesn't let the kids benefit from this diversity. Arlington Traditional School is different because it has kids from all over Arlington. It doesn't matter whether you live in the north or the south. Moving ATS will result in ending the uniqueness about this school. My daughter rides her bus for 40 minutes, and it's going to be an even longer ride to the new location. How many parents from the south, which will be mostly affected, will get their kids out from the school? How many parents from the south will not consider ATS as an optional school after moving to the edge of the county? Or it's going to be an exclusive North Arlington school? Arlington Traditional School won its 3rd ribbon this year as a proof that we achieve our goal together with our diversity. The school provides different experience for Arlington kids, where no one is minority in the school and they can all benefit from the inclusive experience. I came here today knowing that our school board members are capable to find solutions to keep our kids together in their school. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Next speaker, Joanna Savera.
Good evening, honorable school board members, Arlington County officials, and members of the Arlington County community. I'm here today to advocate for Arlington Traditional School to be recognized as an option school at the proposed IPP, and to request that the school is not moved from its current location. ATS has been recognized as a successful program for years. As a result, the ATS has a waiting list of more than 500 students. I believe that the school needs to be enlarged, not moved. Because of its central location, the school has been providing excellent education to many county students, especially those from South Arlington, whose local schools have not been able to close the opportunity gap. But ATS does. If the school is moved far away from its current location as proposed, it will create a disadvantage for many students who come from the southeast part of the county. As it is, my children travel 45 minutes by bus to go to school. Moving the school to McKinley will only increase the travel time for my children and many others from South Arlington. How does that comply with your goal to keep current schools available for their communities? Please find a solution that all children will be provided equally available education to them, including option schools. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
There are no more speakers.
Thank you all for coming out this evening and sharing your thoughts with us, especially on this boundary proposal pre-planning work that we're doing. We hope that you continue to come out and share your voice and your thoughts. We really appreciate hearing from you. And please stay informed with the community meetings that we're having, and share with your community members as many as you can, and share them the resources online. We would really appreciate any efforts you can to make sure we're reaching as many parents as we can. So thank you again for being here tonight. So we're now going to go to our monitoring item. We have one monitoring item tonight, the annual graduation task force update. Ms. Johnson, would you like to introduce this item?
Yes, I'd like to introduce Dr. Laura Newton, who will do the presentation this evening.
Good evening. Good evening, School Board Chair Tanya Talento, school board members, Interim Superintendent Cynthia Johnson, Executive Leadership Team. It is a pleasure to be here tonight to give you an update on the graduation task force. I'm fine. but I don't want to break it. It's okay. I don't want to break it before I get started. Is that better? I appreciate it. Thank you. So tonight, I will give you an update on the program, on the graduation task force, starting with the program profile, some good news, data that provides insight, what we have learned this year, what we're going to do moving forward, and some bright spots. So starting with the program profile, the graduation task force was first started back in 2010 in order to ensure that all our students graduated on time. It consisted on APS staff as well as community members. Since 2016, each comprehensive high school and program created their own school-based teams, and they consist of central office leadership, school leadership, social workers, psychologists, counselors, English language counselors as well, minority achievement, school-based personnel, and community members. I have some great news, I think. APS on-time graduation remains high for class of 2019. Our on-time graduation rate is 92.5. Those students who attended Wakefield High School, Washington Liberty High School, Yorktown High School, their on-time graduation is 96%. Our greatest growth this year for class of 2019 is for English learners. Their on-time graduation went up from 75% to 77%. Also, students with disabilities earn advanced start diplomas, and it increased from 24% to 25%. The next few slides will give us data that will provide information on how the graduation task force is supporting our students meet performance objective number 1. The first one is APS on-time graduation rate. And APS on-time graduation rate for class of 2019 is 92.5 compared to 92.2 for class of 2018. This is an increase from 85.2 back in 2010 when the graduation task force was first created. Virginia on-time graduation is 91.5 compared to 92.5 in APS. This is for students who first started the 9th grade back in 2015 and were able to graduate within 4 years. This next slide disaggregate data by subgroups for students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged, and English learners. The on-time graduation divided by subgroups give us rates of 93.1 for students with disabilities, 92.2 for economically disadvantaged, and 77.1 for English learners. As I mentioned before, the greatest growth was for our English learner students that increased their graduation rate by 2 percentage points from 75% to 77%. And also, we saw an increase for students with disabilities earning advanced studies diploma with an increase of 1 percentage point from 24% to 25%. When we disaggregate the data by race and ethnicity, the on-time graduation rate for Black and Asian students went up by 1 percentage point. So Black students, their graduation went up from 93.6% in 2018 to 94.7% for the class of 2019. And for Asian students, it went up from 95.5% to 96.5%. The on-time graduation for white and Hispanic students remained steady from the previous class, graduation class. Our dropout rate for class of 2019 is 5.6% compared to the previous class, which was 5%. I do want to point out to you that our student enrollment went up significantly from the previous year. So 2018, we had 1,568 students. And in 2019, it went up almost 200 students to 1,769 students. Overall, we see a decline in our dropout rate since 2010 from 11.6% to the 5.6% in 2019. In alignment with performance objective number 9, we are meeting our students' academic, social, emotional, and mental health needs to our Arlington Tiers of Support that we call ATSS. And ATSS is a 3-tier system of support that really emphasizes prevention and early intervention. So starting with tier number 1, this is supports for all our students, and it includes monitoring daily attendance, engaging our families and students, personalized learning, and reducing barriers. Tier 2 are additional supports. This is really meant to tailor those supports to the specific needs of our students. And Tier 3 are intense supports, and these are students that need intense case management and usually requires coordination with local organizations such as Child Find and Juvenile Justice System. The Office of Student Services directly supports performance objective number 15 by providing professional learning to staff that builds capacity for for student success and well-being, such as social emotional learning, mental health, trauma-informed care, substance abuse prevention. We also work very closely with the Office of Human Resources to recruit and to interview our personnel, such as social workers, psychologists, attendance specialists, as well as provide support professional learning for our staff. In direct support for Performance Objective 23, we are also partnering with local organizations to provide wraparound services to our families and supports, such as food and clothing and tutoring and healthcare and mental health supports. But we also partner with local organizations and universities to provide work-based opportunities that give our students the opportunity to get an insight in the world of work, career awareness, and college opportunities. So we have learned that our targeted interventions do work. Therefore, we will continue to meet our students' academic, social, emotional, and mental health needs through Arlington's systems of support. Our school-based teams are essential because they're monitoring the progress of our students, and therefore we can tailor the interventions that we provide specific to their needs. We also need to continue to work with our social workers, our psychologists, our counselors, in order to identify the needs of our students and provide timely supports and services. For our English learners, we need to continue to support them. We know that they need additional time and resources in order to meet graduation requirements, especially through multiple pathways to success, flexible scheduling, personalized learning. Obviously, we need to continue to partner with our county and local organizations and businesses to continue to provide wraparound services such as mental health services, employment, and workforce opportunities. So moving forward, we need to focus our goals with the goals of Profile of a Virginia Graduate, which increases internships opportunities, work-based learning opportunities, also increase career exposure, exploration, and planning, and emphasis on the 5 C's of communication, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, and citizenship. I want to highlight our Dream, Explore, Create Your Own Path back in April. We invited our middle schools and high school students to participate and really celebrate career awareness. And at that time, they built their capacity on the 5 C's of Profile of Virginia Graduate. And we know that these skills are very important if they're going to obtain and succeed in internships, in jobs, and interviews as they move forward. And lastly, I want to highlight our Beyond APS College Fair for 2019. We had over 150 representatives from different colleges, universities, trade schools that were eager and ready to answer questions about admissions, about admissions, academics, and college life. And we also had local organizations that set up tables to provide additional resources for our families and students. At this time, I would like to invite one of our recent graduates, Hailene Rodriguez. Hailene, she is a former EL student and also a CTE student.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity tonight. My name is Helen Rodriguez. I graduated last spring from the Hill Institute program at the Arlington Career Center. I'm here today to talk about how my experience at the Career Center and how the opportunity to explore careers while learning English really helped me get ready for my future. I started taking advantage of CTE classes in 2016 when I took Early Childhood Education 1. And the next year, I followed with the Early Childhood 2. I really enjoyed being in those classes. We got to work with children and learn what it will be like to be an early childhood teacher. After taking 2 years of early childhood and passing my paraprofessional certification, I still have 2 years before graduation, and I decided to take another CTE class. I took information technology, and I decided to take information technology and web design. And before I graduated, I earned another industry certification as a CAW, Advanced HTML5 and CSS3 specialist. Since graduating, I have worked as an intern with a web design co-op, applying my certification and learning how a co-op business works. It has been a great experience and has given me a lot to think about as I plan for my future. The Arlington Career Center has all these great opportunities for students. It made a big difference in my life. Having studied those classes has helped me so much to discover what I want to be in the future. I really encourage the school board to keep supporting CTE classes because it helps students to find their path to their future.
I want to thank her. You don't know, she moved to Maryland, and she says she came to visit us through us taking the metro, and it took her an hour, and it will take her an hour to get back. I think we're going to give her a ride. Thank you. So at this time, I will try to answer some of your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Newton, for the presentation, and thank you, Helen, for coming back to visit us. I remember attending your graduation at the Career Center, so it's exciting to see you here again, and thank you for really sharing with us your experience at Arlington Public Schools and at the Career Center. We appreciate it. Colleagues, do you have any questions or comments regarding the presentation? Dr. Kennan.
You all know I usually like to follow you, but today I'm going to ask some basic questions knowing that you all are going to want to bounce off of them. So, Dr. Newton, you mentioned that the graduation task force was begun in 2010, preceded all of us as a matter of fact, and it's really been a great initiative. It's always wonderful to see the update every year from the beginning of that time to now is a significant improvement. Mm-hmm. But it does look a little like we've kind of plateaued. But what I first want to ask is just if you could remind us a little bit about, who's on the task force and what do you all have resources to work with, or are you a team? Just describe a little bit about how you work and how you impact all the things that are happening with students, if you see what I mean.
So when we first started, well, I was not the initial, so I came in and I have benefited from the task force because it was previous to my being here. But one of the things that they realized is we need to identify data. So there's constant data, so we work very closely with the IT department to get weekly reports, monthly reports, and then those reports go to the school directly. So like I said, now this is, each team gets together because each school has a different group of students that they need to identify and provide services with. So we provide support to the schools as they need them.
Okay, so you're kind of the team that's watching out for all the schools and supporting them in identifying the students that they need to support.
No, what we're trying, I'm sorry, let me just see if I understand what you're saying. What we are doing is providing support to the school teams.
Yes.
So that they're able to provide the supports that they need to their students
Their
in
own
each of their
students.
schools.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I was trying to get at. So I was going to ask you about resources then, because again, it does seem like the numbers have plateaued in the last several years, and it's not surprising. I mean, that's the way things go. You get quick improvement, and then it's hard to keep improving steadily. So if you have any insights as to what the next level might look like for us.
So in looking at the data, we realize that 1/3 of the students that are not graduating are economically disadvantaged, right? We also find out the majority of them are English learners. So I do think that what we need to do is provide the resources that the schools need in order to give the assistance, wraparound services for the disadvantaged students. For example, I know that we have a large number of students that are over 18 that have to work, and they have a hard time, making ends meet. And so I know that we provide wraparound services, we provide food, we provide supplies, transportation, so that they can make it to school each day and attend classes and graduate. The same thing for English learners. I am sure that many of them have, family situations that need assistance. So providing those wraparound services is essential. So when we say that we need to partner with our community to provide the services that they need, there's so many of them, we need to make sure that, we continue to do that.
Ms. O'Grady?
Thank you, Chair Talento. Dr. Newton, let me ask you then, for some of those students, when we looked at slide 13, and we look at the changing aspects of a profile of a Virginia graduate, and there are fewer requirements for verified SOL test credits, and there's an opportunity to increase internships and work-based learning experiences. Do you think those opportunities will help students potentially stay in school by having the opportunity to do perhaps more work opportunities outside of school and have more experiences? I think similar to what we heard from Haley, having exposure to things that they can do in the work world may entice students to stay in school longer. It may help them in that way.
I was talking to Eileen before she came up, and so I asked her, I think she's a prodigy, so I'm going to use her as an example to answer your question. She came to us when she was 15 as an English learner, so she did not know any English when she came in. She said that by having work-based experiences, she had the opportunity to practice her English, learn new vocabulary. Also, she had the motivation because she knew that she was able to work with the skills that she earned. So all these things are important because I don't think it's an exception to the rule. In my previous life, I was an English counselor. I call it ESL, counselor. And I do remember that many of my students would have liked the opportunity to, work and come to school. Not only because it gives them the experience, but they do need to practice their English. They do need to have the skills in order to make it in the world. So yes, I do think that having less verified credits, because I think that that's where the English is tested. And I have many of the students in the past that were my students that were not able to graduate because they were missing one SOL. They have met all other graduations and one was missing. And that's sad when they have made all that effort. But they were working, and so they wanted to have that experience, and they're willing to work their experience. They have very nice work ethics. They don't mind coming to school and working. Most of them do that, and they're happy about it.
And I would just add that on the previous slide where you talk about strengthening supports for English learners, one of the things we recently learned in the English learner evaluation is the importance of giving students the ability to be able to have in diverse settings the opportunity to speak and practice their English within an educational setting. So even looking at expanding those opportunities before students get to high school could potentially help move students in the direction of staying in school and adding the supports even earlier that could potentially help us with the graduation pathways. So I'm looking at how this delves in and folds into the information we just heard recently from our English language learner evaluation as well. So I appreciate the information. I agree with Dr. Cannon in that we need to look at ways to move beyond where we are now. And I look forward to seeing how some of the things that you outlined here can help us make some more progress. Thank you.
Mr. Goldstein, do you have any questions? Okay. Dr. Newton, I have a few questions. Thank you for your presentation. Do you have the breakdown demographics of the 5.6% of dropouts from last year?
Mhm.
Would you mind sharing those with us?
Sure. So if we go back, just so that we have a point of reference, let's see, to the dropout here. Is that the
Yes.
dropout? Yes. Okay. So we see that 99 students out of the class of 2019 were dropouts. So we can desegregate the data by gender, and we know that 63 of them were males compared to 36 that were females. For the number of English learners, 80 of those students, dropouts were English learners. 17 of them were students with disabilities. If we break out by race, 4 of them were Asian. Sorry, I have to. 5 Black, 80 Hispanic, 7 white, and 3 other.
Okay, thank you. So I really appreciate that because I've been trying to get down to this data. And I was a high school dropout. I had to drop out of high school. And I would have been classified as an English learner, but for some reason, I think my older sister filled out our paperwork when we moved from DC to Falls Church, and she put that we spoke English at home because her and I and my younger siblings spoke English, but we actually spoke Spanish. So, this is a personal, this is a personal advocacy for me because as a high school dropout, and what I needed was 1 credit to graduate, but the school could not provide me an alternative program. And when I called the Board of Education to determine what I could do to get a diploma, not a GED, they said I had to drop out. And I had to attend, because my counselor said there was no part-time class for me. I couldn't, the system I was in did not have the supports that APS has. So it's disheartening to me to know that we have Langston, that we have Arlington Community High School, that we have the Hilt Academy, that we have all these programs, and we still have 99 students. It would be great. I know that we're not going to be able to save everyone, but our goal should be everyone. But when I look at the breakdown, when we look at 80 Ls and 80 Hispanic, when we did our L work session, they talked about, I remember the number 30, but I can't remember if it was 30 seniors or 30 high schoolers. We had 30 students had been in the English learner program since kindergarten and were in high school. So I was hoping that as you continue your work this year, can you go back for the next last 3 or 4 years as the graduation task force and look at how many of the students that dropped out have been in our English language learner program since kindergarten? Because one of the issues that came up in our work session about our Ls was the lack of rigor in our instruction. And if you had a child who's been an English learner since kindergarten and they're now in high school and they have to be in these sometimes pull-out or self-contained classes or even getting support systems, a lot of times that has interfered with electives. I think we need to have a deeper dive into what is affecting the students that are dropping out, and then providing them resources to Langston or Arlington Community High School, because one of the challenges that I had personally is that I was working part-time and I was helping to support some of the bills in my family's home, and I was going to school. And so I couldn't do the full-time load. And, if I had had a program like Lansing, that's what I did. And what I ended up doing is I ended up, much like Kaylin, taking 45 minutes on a bus and metro to get to the program, to get my diploma, twice a week to take my English credit that I needed to graduate. So the drive is there, they just don't sometimes have the resources. I think I'm bringing this up because when you look at 99 kids, it is such a small number. But when you look at that 80 of them are Hispanic and that 80 of them are Ls, we have the resources here. So if you can look to see, dig a little deeper in the data. That's what I'm asking it. If you can dig a little deeper in the data and determine, are these Ls that have been missed in our system? We should never have an L in the system for K through 12. We have failed that. Our students with disabilities, You know, are there cases that we can work through? You know, is it a family decision? Is it, so we don't have that answer, but I agree with Dr. Cannon that we've plateaued, and I think that by digging a little deeper and understanding, because Halen is a great example of someone who's come here. The programs like the Hiltz Academy at the Career Center are excellent. I know that Langston now has a program very similar that I've heard is excellent. We're still struggling with providing rigor, but how many of those kids have been in our system longer, that they're not just coming here? And so those are the questions I would like to ask. So hopefully next year we can see a smaller number because we've dug a little deeper. And so thank you for providing me that data. I really appreciate it. This is helpful to understand where, as we look at policy and budget, maybe where we need to focus. So any, as our departments develop their budget, any resources that you find that need to be provided, and I say this to our ELT, that needs to be provided to support students to ensure that we're getting them the resources they need to not be in this predicament would be really great. And thank you for your presentation. Yes, please, Mr. Goldstein.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to follow up on a couple of your questions, just for clarity. You said there were 80 of the dropouts who are Ls.
That's right.
And what's the definition of a dropout? Is it, have they?
I will read what video it says the dropout is.
Okay.
I need my glasses, sorry. It says, dropouts represents all non-graduates, not completers who have discontinued school and unconfirmed students. These students have not earned a credential and are not enrolled in school at the time of the report.
Okay, so are all of the dropouts, did all of the dropouts, all right, let me try this again. Are the dropouts not graduating with the class that they entered high school with?
Dropout in general means that the students are no longer enrolled and we don't know where they are.
Okay, so is it possible that they started high school, you know, in the 11th grade or the 10th grade or something like that, did not have the benefit of, you know, a full 4 years to be able to take courses and, you know, acquire credits?
Very true, yes.
It's possible.
Very possible.
Okay, and so do you do a survey of dropouts to find out what the reasons are that they're dropping out? I mean, are they, you know, family related, economically related, you know, grades related?
I think it's a great question, but the reason why dropouts is because we cannot get in touch with them anymore. So once they're out of our contact, we don't have their information, we cannot contact them. In the past, when they have not come to us, we know that it's for employment, or they have moved, or family reasons, all of those reasons. But if they are dropouts, it's because we have not been able to contact them.
So they don't go through a formal process of dropping out, filling
No,
out
they just
paperwork,
stop
and they
coming.
just don't show up anymore? Yeah, okay.
I would like to add just a comment, just because it's part of the work we do throughout the school year, and that is that we monitor students' attendance regularly, and it is something that is also discussed on a monthly basis at principals' meeting, so that we are mindful of where students are. So if we do not know their whereabouts, there is concerted effort on the part of the principals in conjunction with our departments to try to find out where these students are.
Okay. All right, thank you. I liked the presentation. It was informative and clear and concise. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Kennan?
Actually, as a quick follow-up on that comment, we have had in the past some deeper dives into this topic, and you all generally do know, or the teams at the schools know the names of all 99 of those students. I mean, there's tremendous effort put in.
I mean, the
And that's
report is
terrific.
because we checked daily attendance, and then we go with weekly attendance, and then we have, the state require us to if you miss 5 days, you need to have it planned, and then you have to have a conference. So, you know, we are on the students on a regular basis, but then after a while, sometimes you don't know because they just move or they're not available, and we call and they're not answering, or we go and do home visits and nobody answers the door.
Right. The comment I wanted to make, though, was just sort of wanted to wrap up the different comments. Sometimes we all say things and the theme doesn't necessarily come through, but I think this was a really important theme, the idea of your work and the fact that it's really dominated by English learners and that we just had this evaluation, and as a result of the evaluation, we're going to have this task work plan with deadlines and potential budget items, and just want to make sure that, this gets connected to that. There might be some way that something from that evaluation will have synergy with what you're doing, and we
We are
can
going
fund
to
something.
alignment to the EL, evaluation.
And we're
So
very
we
interested.
get
I think we specifically
recommendations.
requested that you think about that in your proposed budget, so.
So thank you, Dr. Newton. Yes, Dr. Cannon's right. And I think at the work session, I even stated that I asked him to work with our graduation task force to see if there's any overlap in the students that they identified that have been in our system, in the EL system for going into high school since kindergarten. Because I think that, again, in hearing you explain, the goal is to catch them before they lose that hope in school.
Yes.
And that faith in school. And
Just
so-
provide the services that they need. If we're
Right.
able to provide their needs, tailor it to what they need, then, they'll
stay.
remain in school.
Right, and I know that Arlington Community High School and Langston offer the opportunity for flexible scheduling and the ability to meet your needs for your family or yourself and school. So maybe we need to bring all of those four things together, our alternative schools, our graduation task force, and our ELs. And I know that they're all connected, so I know that you're already collaborating, but maybe figure out how to strengthen that communication. But thank you again for the presentation. Thank you, colleagues, for the comments. And we're going to move to the next item. Thank you, Dr.
very
Newton. So there are 2 action items tonight. First, we will act on the legislative package. Dr. Cannon is the board's legislative liaison this year. So Dr. Cannon, would you please introduce this item for us?
Sure, and I know Ms. Wise is here. Generally, when we bring something to action, we're just summarizing any changes from the last discussion. Is that what you'd like me to do?
Yes, if
Or-
there are
or
no
is-
changes, then Lila can share that with us, and we'll go for a motion, we'll prepare.
Yeah, let me just say a quick word, and thank you very much to Ms. Wise. We had a bit of a discussion when this came for information 2 weeks ago. I think as a result of that, some new topics were raised at that point 2 weeks ago, and I think we decided it was a little late to do the full staff analysis to add anything. So basically, this package is what we saw for information, with one edit that Ms. Wise, do you want to just tell us quickly what has changed? And I think maybe we'd be ready for a motion.
Good evening. The only edit was that with the sales tax on e-cigarettes and vaping, we added that it would be dedicated to public education. So that was it. But I did want to make a couple of comments. First, yesterday was the first day that legislation could be introduced. And you'll be interested to know that one of your big topics of decriminalizing disorderly conduct, it was almost the first piece of legislation introduced on both the House side, and that was Delegate Jeff Bourne from Richmond, and on the Senate side, Senator Jennifer McClellan, also from Richmond. And I had been in contact with Delegate Sullivan to say, would he introduce this? And I got a note back from his office saying, now that they've already introduced it, he doesn't need to, does he? And I said, he can just be a patron. So that's just the only comments that I have.
And we're off to the races.
Off to the races, and of course, you're going to vote on that at the VSBA meeting on Thursday, so
At the
we'll
Delegate
see how
Assembly.
that goes. Yep.
Okay. I have a motion, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I do have a clarifying question. Are there any other clarifying questions before the motion? Okay, Mr. Goldstein has a clarifying question, so I want to speak.
Thank you, Lila. I'm embarrassed to ask this because I'm the one who's always telling people to take a political science course, but if the session hasn't started yet, how is it that legislation's introduced?
There is a whole timeline, and so they are able to go ahead and introduce legislation. So they, a timeline that said the second week in November, something like that. So yes, they can.
Even though the session officially starts in January?
That's right.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But only if you got reelected can you introduce the legislation.
So new members cannot reintroduce legislation, members that haven't been sworn in, and members that are leaving cannot introduce legislation. Is that correct? Okay, fascinating. I forgot to ask for speakers. Do we have any speakers? Okay. So I have another clarifying question, and just because we're on the heels of our VSBA conference, so Thursday, the Virginia School Board Association will bring this package to the Virginia School Board Association members,
the delegate
which Barbara is
assembly.
the delegate for Arlington County School Board. No, but some of the things in this package that are in the greater package, which is 3 of the things in our legislative package. If you all recall, we presented over the summer to the Virginia School Board Association on some of these items, and 3 of the items that we presented got approved to be in the Virginia School Board legislative package.
Right.
And so on Thursday, which Barbara is our delegate, they're actually going to vote on that Virginia School Board package. They go by item by item. And then if the School Board Association members approve it, then they lobby that to the General Assembly? Okay, that's great. It's amazing to tie these together, and I just appreciated that because, and then I guess I'll finish the comment after the motion because it's related to that. But thank you, Lila. I'm excited. Okay, so may I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that the board approve the 2020 legislative package.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor? Well, are there a discussion? Thank you. Yes, so I was going to say, we had all these, I know, right? I thank you all for supporting my chairmanship. Okay, we had all these things that were important come up during information last week. And I just want to note that I think we should consider the things that we were not able to implement, and I appreciate why, because we want to make sure that we do it with fidelity and that we have done our due diligence and we're bringing it with clarity to our legislative package. But what we did last year that we haven't done in years past is bring it to that summer session for the VSBA. So maybe some of the things that we discussed could be brought to the summer to be asked for the VSBA process. And then that eases it into our legislative package the following year. It was much easier this year putting our package together because we had done that work to present it to the VSBA over the summer. So we had already dug a little deeper. And I really love that, to like the solar piece, looking at the Ramdrass, digging a little deeper on the dual certification and if there's impact for our students. It'd be great. So I am asking our school board liaison, since you'll still be in that role, if you could look into that for us as that time
Yes,
approaches.
absolutely,
I think that's due
yes.
June 10th. I mean, it's not that far away.
Yeah, it'll be right around the corner.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly, but yeah, they start asking for those proposals
Like in March or
pretty
April, or
soon.
May, right? March or April.
So we'll
like
do that. I think I would just say for anyone who has those kinds of ideas, just submit them through the staff, ask for a staff recommendation on potential legislation, make clear that you're asking in the context of, for the legislative package, the ideas you have.
So because we have that opportunity, I will be supporting the package as is presented
Excellent.
today.
Thank you.
That's why I typed it in. Okay. All right. Any other comments?
Well, can I make a comment?
Please.
Yep. All during the session, because there's going to be stuff that's going to come up that none of us have ever thought about. And so I work with Dr. Ketterman, who works then with you, and said, should we support this? Should we oppose this? Is it okay for Lila to get up there and speak against it or speak for it? And so this is, even though we've got a package, this is sort of a framework that we're dealing with. And we'll be doing a lot of other things as we go along.
Thank you, Ms. Weiss. Yes, Ms. O'Grady.
So if any of these other items come up that we were potentially interested in adding to this package, but we thought it was too late, we can have this conversation with you, Ms. Wise, and potentially support it.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And there will be a lot of things you haven't even thought of that you will want to support or that you may want to oppose. And so, as I say, this is a moving target, and we'll keep up with it.
We're expecting a practical, common sense set of bills to come through this new legislature this winter. We're excited.
I am very excited, and I think that we're going to see
allowed
an
to say
awful
that.
lot of good things about education, which have not been necessarily the case over the past 26 years.
Yes, we expect support for our schools.
Yep.
Okay, so thank you.
All
So
right.
now we will move on the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Ms. Weiss, for being here with us this evening.
See you at the
Yes, we'll see you.
the breakfast
The
for
breakfast, December
legislators.
9th. 9th, okay. Thank you. Next, we will act on the middle school and high school program of studies. Ms. Johnson, would you please introduce the item?
Good evening, Mr. Verd.
Good evening.
He will be doing the presentation this evening.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to be back with you this evening. So we've been asked to review our previous submission with regard to the secondary school program of studies. We made a few changes with regard to some incongruities between the PowerPoint and the addition summary sheet that you see. Let's see, I'll go back and make this correction. So with regard to the middle school, the deletions of the French 1 and Latin 1 intensified, they're no longer deletions. This does not appear to be the most recent iteration of the PowerPoint, because those are no longer deletions. Those are now, they've been replaced, so we'll have to make that correction. Those courses were once going to be deleted at the intensified level, but now they're going to embed them into the French 1 and Latin 1 classes. We talked about it at our last session as an opportunity to keep those classes, so we're going to keep them, but they're going to have to be co-seated with the French 1 and Latin 1 classes. I think we said that last time. With regard to some of the incongruities between what you see here, the high school course additions and the high school summary sheet, the courses that you see here, we've in the past just given you broad themes of the courses that are going to be added and not a specific itemization on this slide. So we've just talked about some of the classes that we were going to be added that we thought were things to celebrate, so to speak, and kudos that we are hopeful that we are going to bring classes like criminal justice 1 and 2 to our students and giving them an opportunity to expand on their pathway study, and then courses that had been adopted, or excuse me, that had been piloted at one school in Arlington that are going to be formally adopted at all of our schools in Arlington. So this slide has typically served that purpose. If it is the want of the school board moving forward, we can itemize every course that we are going to consider for addition on this slide. We have not done that in the past, but we can move in that direction if that will be beneficial to the greater community. But all of the courses should show on the addition and deletion summary sheet. Also, another caveat, sometimes a course will be considered an addition when it is actually a revision. School board policy does not ask us to bring revisions to you in this format, in this forum, but sometimes a course will be revised such that it is added in a way. Let me give you an example. Early childhood study is currently being offered at the Career Center, but it is now going to be added as a dual enrollment opportunity for students. So it's being revised. It's added as dual enrolled, but the course is being revised to give students an opportunity to start working on their associate's degree while in the Career Center. So those types of courses are added here for just to give us an opportunity to celebrate some of the things I think we're doing well in schools. Let's see what else. And then there was also a lot of conversation about the additions and what budgetary constraints that might call upon. The number 12 here came out of this slide here during our ELT conversation, and just a quick itemization and accounting of those would suggest that there are 12 additions, but that's not actually the case. There are not 12 classes being added. I can tell you why. The Chinese, the IB Chinese BSL class, that's actually 2 classes which are combined to be taught over 2 years. So it's actually one class that could be construed as 2 classes when it is not. So cybersecurity is also another class that is a 2-year class that's a part 1 and a part 2. So they don't always count as the 2 classes that they might seem to be. So in my itemization, we have 10 new classes, and I've resubmitted the additions and deletions summary sheet for you to review, and you can see that we have now disaggregated the list from the brand new additions on the top portion of that document, And then second part of the document, you'll see new additions which were piloted and approved for the 2019-2020 school year to be added to the POS upon successful implementation. And we talked about success at our last meeting being continued student interest in that course. And so if a school is perceived that there is still interest in the course, that they would like to initiate it no longer as a piloted course, but as a course to be added to the program of studies. Okay, I guess I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. And do we have any speakers on this item? Okay. Colleagues, do you have any questions, comments before we move on a motion? Ms. O'Grady.
Good evening, Mr. Byrd.
Good evening.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about that storytelling class.
Okay.
Do you have any additional information you can give us about how that piloted class has been doing this year? What sorts of students have been signing up to take it, and what the initial response is to it?
So Ms. Silver provided me with some information, a snapshot with regard to how that course is going. And when we started the conversation that was focused on rigor and how we were going to enhance rigor across all of our courses, this one included. What she's informed me is that the expectations for students obviously is at a high level, and that the implementation of this supports the scaffolding for students to learn at high levels to include student engagement in the learning, the opportunities to demonstrate high learning at all levels. The reports I'm receiving back from the schools are that there's a wide diversity of students in the classes, that we've been able to offer enough sections at each building to there are at least 2 sections of the storytelling class at each building, and that the population of the classes reflects the diversity of their school buildings. I don't have specific numbers with regard to a breakdown for you. I can get that. I apologize. I have not been able to capture that information just yet. But the report I'm hearing from principals and directors of counseling services is that the courses do represent the diversity of the school buildings.
Thank you. And then regarding the slide that's up currently, I had asked last time whether or not general enrollment growth might basically already require us to add additional courses, and therefore the proposed or projected cost of $912,000 may be a cost that we have to incur in any event, whether or not we add these specific new classes that you're talking about, or if we have to add any other classes. Is there more information to share on that question?
I'll have to ask finance.
I apologize, Ms. O'Grady. I was not paying full attention to your question. What is that again?
No worries. I know you're very busy. I would ask again whether or not, I'm following up on what I asked about last week, or at our last meeting regarding whether or not the $912,000, $100,000 that is projected to be needed to add these additional courses, whether or not we think that we would have to add we'd have to add an additional number of courses anyway, so that projected cost may be something we have to incur anyway, just because we're going to have an increase in student enrollment.
At the time the slide was done, it was an attempt to provide information around what the financial considerations are of adding a number of courses. I've talked with Mr. Byrd since then. I also had a conversation with high school principals just today, in fact, and there would not be necessarily the need to add all of that, but there's not a need to add nothing. So we can't tell at this point, because we don't know how many students will opt out of other elective courses and into these courses, that would then mean that the other courses that they're leaving would then not make up, and so would not be offered. So there could be some reallocation of staffing. but it's not going to be one for one. So there's going to be some need there. Perhaps the best plan of action at this point is to move forward with the knowledge that there might be a need for some additional funding for those courses, but we won't know exactly until those courses are enrolled, and we can make a plan to pay for it out of contingency for the following year, with the understanding that we would come back to the board next year at this time and say, this has been our experience with the addition of these courses, this is what happened, so we would recommend this plan of action for the future.
That's very helpful. So in other words, there could be an additional cost, but with more reflection and having spoken with the principals, it probably would not be as high as what's currently listed on the slide.
Correct.
And so if board members decided to embrace the new breadth and depth and interest of the classes that may really pique the interest of many of our students, and even one class that's being proposed to be a course that is adopted across the state, then we may not have as great of a pull on our budget as is currently up on this slide, because I just worry that there is a high number on the slide that doesn't really reflect the real potential impact. And so I just want to be clear that may be high.
It may be high, and the intent was to initiate the conversation and discussion that we're having right now.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Goldstein, do you have any questions?
Yeah.
I thought you asked. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, and it's in the same vein as Ms. O'Grady. So first, let me just say, Mr. Byrd, these classes look great, and you've done great work, and I do fully embrace them when we find the money.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it would make me sad to have to delay adding these courses for a year, but I simply cannot prioritize whether it's this amount or half of this amount now, when in our budget direction, we didn't prioritize restoring class sizes. Last spring, we raised class sizes in high school, which means we reduced high school staffing. And I was at the Columbia Pike Library event last night, and a graduate from 2 years ago spoke, and we always talk about the need for seats. She literally said at WNL, the first day of school, they are running around looking for seats, chairs, in the building because they have classes that are so big. We end up with very large core classes because we have a lot of electives. And my understanding is also at WNL that the theater program isn't filling. We have so many electives. And so I think this budget conversation is important, because we can't keep adding and adding and adding every year without talking about what's our promise to our students. I'm not comfortable. I know at the last board meeting, board members suggested that they're comfortable having a lot of courses listed. They won't all fill, and students get their second or third choice. I'm not comfortable. I feel that students believe that the program of studies is what's being offered to them, and I believe that that's a promise. So I'm very concerned about the budget piece of this. And so I guess I want to confirm, Ms. Peterson, what you said the last time, which you suggested that you thought that if we restored class size, because we made that, it was a $2.1 million change, if we did that in the upcoming budget, we're not doing it tonight, we did not put it in our budget direction that we wanted to do it, which is why I'm uncomfortable prioritizing this over what should have been in our budget direction. But you did suggest that if we restored class size, we would be able to afford these classes.
I did, and that was more because I could remember how many FTE we cut as a result of increasing class size. It really doesn't, on reflection, it doesn't work exactly that way, because if we restored class size, we'd be back to the same place that we are now with smaller classes. We wouldn't have the staff to actually make up the new classes if the students didn't leave the old classes and we could reallocate the staffing. So regardless of whether or not the class size is 23 or 25 or 30, raising or lowering the class size isn't going to free up the teachers that are needed to teach the new courses. It's the students leaving other electives and freeing up staffing allocation from other electives to take
So
the
that
new
gets,
electives.
you're saying it really gets down to paring down the array of electives?
Yes.
I feel it's time that we have that conversation. I think it's an important conversation we have to have. So I again, would love to support these classes, but believe we need to fund them first.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Mr. Goldstein.
Yeah, thank you. So, as you know, I had some issues last year with the course or courses that you're now recommending for adoption. And the discussion last year, you know, was quite a bit around rigor, and I'm still not understanding how those courses are contributing to, you know, our definition of rigor. So if you could help me with that, I'd appreciate it. Also, I'm interested, are these being offered, these are middle school courses, storytelling, right? And
Yes.
social skills, and they're offered at every middle school?
Yes.
Okay. So can we talk about rigor?
Well, when the storytelling course was offered, at the time, we didn't know exactly which course it was going to be, but we knew there was going to be an 8th grade option English course added. And it was not added to suggest that it was going to be any more rigorous than the regular English course that was already being offered for 8th graders. Instead, it was our expectation that all of our courses provide rigor and offer rigor, and we continually seek to enhance rigor in the classrooms and differentiate that rigor for all of our students, so that we have students who are in need of remediation, students who are in the middle who are able to compete on their own with support from the teacher, and those students who need to be enriched because they come with previous learning experiences that allow them for that opportunity. Also using the gifted clustering model, where 5 students are clustered in a classroom and receive a differentiated opportunity to learn from the other students in the class. So there was never our intention to add a class that could be considered intensified or more rigorous than any of our other classes, just another option course.
I guess that's where I'm at odds with, because I'm a fan of the intensified classes as was recommended by the consultant who,
Understood.
you know, we have. So when I hear you say it's no more rigorous than anything else, I'm not persuaded that, you know, the rigor here is something that, you know, I should be sitting up and taking notice of. And I'd really like to see the numbers on the enrollment there, because one of the assurances from last year was that the courses would reflect the diversity available, you know, within those buildings. But that's why I'm interested in the numbers. I need to wait for more than 2.5 months experience on these courses to see, you know, how they're working out before I approve the adoption of it. Getting into the program of studies last year doesn't automatically make it a candidate for adoption, you know, for me, for this year. And as Barbara said, I also need to wait to understand how the items in our budget direction are addressed before we leapfrog that budget process and approve, you know, something very close to $1 million for this now. I would really like to see a trimmed down list of courses that reflects absolute needs to go into the program of studies for next year.
And as I said at our last gathering, that I mean, we try to be aspirational, and then, you know, my colleague has a responsibility to be financially responsible, as do we. But we proposed a list of aspirational opportunities. If we're asked to implement a moratorium on new courses, I think that puts our kids behind. I'm just speaking the truth of the Department of Teaching and Learning, but I also understand that there are financial responsibilities that we have to account for. But each of the courses that if you're going to ask us to I don't know, prioritize those courses, that'll be a heavy lift for us because every department's going to suggest that each of those courses is very important to them. It can be done, but it would be one that we would hate to say that we're not going to offer IB Chinese because cybersecurity is more important than it. But we'll go through that exercise.
I understand the quandary that this whole issue, presents. As I think everyone has said, and I agree, these are courses that our students are going to need to be, modern-day graduates of APS and citizens of the 21st, third decade of the 21st century and beyond, and I agree with that. However, like I said, leapfrogging the budget process to the tune of $1 million is not something I can do at this point.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein. So I just wanted to clarify, Mr. Byrd, a couple of things. In the storytelling, I understood that it was differentiated, but Mr. Goldstein said that it wasn't you didn't see, there was no extra rigor in this class than the other. So I need you to clarify that for me, because the way I understood it last year is that it would be differentiated rigor in the course so that it would have high expectations, it would have rigor, and then students would have differentiated learning within that. But did you say something different?
No, ma'am, you didn't misunderstand. That's what our expectation is, but it's our expectation for every course. So the English 8 that is currently being offered is also expected to be rigorous, and it's also expected to be differentiated. This other course, this storytelling course, is just another option for a different focus for English. So
you just refreshed my memory. So now I remember the debate last year was that there was a desire based on some recommendations in the GSAC evaluation about intensified courses, but there was concern about tracking.
Right.
You only had one grade 6 course offered at the time, which was reading. Is that correct?
Grade
Is the
8.
storytelling a grade 6 course as well?
Storytelling is only 8th grade.
8th grade, okay, so it was just going to that track, so this offers a different venue, so it offers option, choice for our
Yes,
students.
ma'am.
Okay.
We did not want to see an exodus of all gifted students toward any course. So we would like to believe that they are choosing either of these courses as it speaks to their personal interests.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to clarify. I also wanted to note that in the motion that was prepared tonight, recommended by staff, is you're recommending a disclaimer to be put in the program of studies that will state that these courses are being offered based on interest and budgetary constraints.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. I know we didn't have that discussion, and I know you didn't have the PowerPoint that you wanted. So, we'll have to figure that out. But I just want to share with the community that there is a disclaimer. So there is no commitment to the courses from a budgetary perspective. It really will depend on interest. And to me, that's choice and voice, right? So I appreciate the comments about narrowing down electives, but I think that by having our kids choose through their program, through their course request forms, what classes they're interested, through their choice and voice, will narrow the electives for us. So then at that point, whatever we can afford, we will put with the most interest. And the concern I have about not approving this program of studies is that if we there's a way to balance the needs instead of always looking at restraint, because these programs are really launching us into innovative and future curriculum. And there may be courses that exist now that we're so used to having that can only be eliminated through lack of interest because of expectation or tradition or, a lot of other concerns. So I believe that with this disclaimer, it provides us that flexibility. And I also was thinking about, I had heard about the class size discussion point, and I did come up with the same analysis that if we did not increase class sizes, that would not necessarily provide us more opportunity for teachers, because those teachers would be needed for addressing the classes that are there, from making the class sizes smaller. So that was the other piece. And I know we have a lot of electives, but again, we talk about choice and voice and multiple pathways, and I think we need to stay true to that value. And if we can do that by ensuring with a disclaimer that, we're going to do the best we can to provide the best opportunity for our students, I think that's what this program of studies does. I do have one other question that came up, and it's the Arlington Tech piece. So I appreciated the follow-up that we received about Arlington Tech and the alignment. But the one thing that I did want clarity on is, I understand that you have to be in Algebra 2 by 10th grade. And Arlington Tech this year offered a course that was Algebra 1 and Geometry combined. Some of the concerns that we heard when it was implemented is that they had not seen it in the program of studies. So my question is, will that course be listed in our program of studies as a course offered at the Career Center for students who are coming in without algebra? Will it be a paragraph that's at, because I've seen the program of studies and it's like a catalog.
Yeah, Ms. Johnson and I spoke about this late this afternoon, and we can add a language to the program of studies that states that this is an option for an alternative pathway into the school. So if a student has not completed algebra by 8th grade, they can enroll in this class to ensure that they are capable of enrolling in dual enrolled classes in their 11th grade year. So we have a statement that we can use and put into the program of studies for that.
Because it's a course that already exists, it's not listed here.
True, that is right.
So I understand that logic, but we want to make sure that any future students entering Arlington Tech will see that course listed in the program of studies and recognize that they will be enrolled in it if they're coming in without algebra.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay, great. So I think those are the 4 things that I wanted to touch base on, and I think we're ready for a motion. Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Bird, I just wanted to follow up with you and hear more about, you mentioned that Teaching and Learning sees the program of studies as aspirational. So does that mean that just by definition, you expect to have a lot of courses that students sign up for but don't fill, and students are going to exercise voice and choice, but at the end of the day, there are going to be courses with low enrollment that get essentially canceled.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Right.
That's actually how Teaching and
I'm
Learning
not
wants to
I'm not sure if it's the plan. As Ms. Peterson did, I engaged our high school principals to talk to them about the development of their master schedule. I reached out to docs and to principals, and what I can gather, and based upon my own experience as a high school principal, it's much more art than it is science, putting together that master schedule. And you ask your students to make choices, and you provide them the options based upon where they go. So if students are demonstrating an interest in a level of study that you don't have, then you ask for that level of study to be provided so that they can have it. And then through the course of natural attrition, some other courses are not filled. And then those classes may not be removed from the program of studies, because the human tendency is once it's offered, it's hard to take it back. So it may be in the program of studies, but may not be running at schools. So if as I process the program of studies, and the cleanup that might need to be done is for us to do an auditing of those courses that are still in the program of studies but haven't been offered in some time, which is making our document thick, but is not necessarily requiring us more staff, because our staff is moving to those new courses where teachers have the credentials to teach. So you understand what I'm saying? It's like we have these courses that we just can't get rid of.
I would, as one board member, very much encourage that process. I know it's not a lot of fun, but I do want to confirm then that when we get to the spring and some courses don't fill, there will be students who will think that course was canceled and come and speak to the board about why we aren't offering a certain course. And I would remind everyone that it happened just last year with Latin and German.
Sure.
And I think we frustrated the superintendent at the time, and he told us we all need tutorials in master planning because we basically added those courses back. Probably cost more, I don't know how we paid for it. But we all need to be aware then, if that's the way this is going to go, that students will come to us and tell us that they think that we canceled their course, a certain course that they'd like to take, and they'll tell us why it's a great course.
Right.
And, but that's, if we have too many courses and, it's aspirational, that is going to happen.
I understand. And in some instances, not all, but in many, courses that can't be offered in a traditional brick and mortar setting, we can offer online or virtually. So we're making more and more inroads in that regard so that fewer and fewer students have to go without. They may need to go through an alternative approach to learning that material, but we can still give them an opportunity to use it, to have access to it as a part of our budget. So I understand and appreciate where you're coming from with that. But again, when we hear of a course that could help our kids prepare for the next challenge in life, we would like to consider it as an option, and so that this debate happens.
Mr. Bird, I think Mr. Golson has another question, and then we'll wrap up and move your motion.
Yeah, thank you. So, like I said, I've got a big problem with the budget issue, and it's occurred to me that this could be resolved by doing the timing differently. What kind of time do you need to be able to decide on a program of studies and then, put it into whatever documents you need to publish and,
we can put together our electronic document very quickly. The printed document and the translated documents take a bit more time. When students return from winter break, we like to have that document in place, either electronically or in hard copy, so that counselors can begin having conversations with students about their next level. As they matriculate through middle and high school, they can start to have conversations about which courses they might be interested in enrolling in. They start doing visits. The middle school counselors will visit to the English classrooms to talk to them about course offerings for the next school year. Then high school counselors will come down to the middle schools and engage the students in conversations about all the exciting courses that are available in high school. So we'd like to know which courses are going to be available at that time around winter, when we return from winter break.
And when do you need to have the course selections nailed down? Course selections by the students?
I'll have to check for 100%. I can check before I leave today.
Yeah, roughly. It doesn't sound like we're going to be able to move that to the end of our budget process.
No, we wouldn't be able to do that. Not be able to have a good idea of how to start staffing our buildings.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Ms. Talento, I do have a suggestion.
I'm not
I'd like to
taking
make a
anymore.
motion.
Well, you're going to have
I'd like to make a
wait,
motion to
because not
delay.
everyone has had a second chance
Oh,
to
okay.
answer questions. So
Oh,
I said,
okay.
no.
I'm sorry, I
that's
thought
okay.
that questions were
It's
over.
okay. It's all right. We're on our second round of questions. Ms. O'Grady has another question.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that after having this discussion at our last board meeting, I thought that the staff came up with a good way to move forward, which is to offer these new courses that I think respond to potentially interest of our students, our diverse student body, in a way that if the course has a low enrollment, that it may not be offered. If we do not have the budgetary ability to be able to offer the classes, then we will consider that. I also think it's important for us to understand that our students do have a certain number of electives they can take, and if they were to take some of these new electives, maybe the other older electives may not run. Mm-hmm. So there is not clarity on how much this could cost. There's not clarity on how much more we need to spend, because we may need to spend more because of the number of students. I believe that it is helpful for us to offer these classes and to run them based on interest and on our budgetary opportunities. So with the way that the staff has proposed that we move forward, I'm very comfortable with doing that, understanding that student interest and budget could have an impact, but it will give our students the opportunity to tell us what classes they're interested in taking, and moving away from potentially decades-old classes and offering things that are more reflective of perhaps our students' current interests. Thank you.
Mr. Bird, we may have a split vote tonight, and Robert's rules would require us to then move that vote, table the action, and try again when we have the next board meeting.
Understood.
However, I am also conscious of the fact that we're on a timeline, and if necessary, we'll call a board meeting to do the action, because our next board meeting is not until December 5th. So I just put that for your consideration. And Ms. Johnson, that might be something that you will need to let me know about if we need to call a special meeting to, because this is to the core of the work that we do, which is the instruction of our students. So if it is a tie vote tonight, our next meeting is until December 5th. If there's a school board member absent, just for everyone's knowledge, at that meeting, and it again is a tie vote, then what it does is the motion fails. If it passes, then we're able to move forward. If that motion, if for some reason that motion fails, we will find ourselves in a difficult situation to meet the timeline. But the hope would be that we could call a special meeting with all 5 board members present if needed. So if it can wait till December 5th, then we'll do it at that time. But I just want to let you know that that may happen tonight.
Okay. A couple of things that are also pressing. I believe the DOJ settlement requires that we identify essential documents for translation.
Okay.
This might qualify. I'm not 100% certain. That conversation hasn't been finalized just yet. And if that is the case, then that might extend the amount of time that it takes for us to produce the electronic document. I believe we could begin conversations with the students about what their next course offerings will be electronically right away, and then we can begin preparing a hard copy. We used to send a copy for every student to schools. Now I believe we're down to like 50 per school. But I will get a hard date for you and share that through Ms. Johnson soon.
Okay, and Dr. Cannon, you had a suggestion that you wanted to make?
Yes. It may or may not fit the timeline. I thought I heard that you really need this by the end, before winter break, really. And we have 2 meetings in December. And my thought was, this is a motion that has this program studies has financial consequences. It's a cost. I know we're going to be seeing our summer school program in December for info and action, and I think there may be some financial consequences of the summer school program. It's possible that those 2 items could offset each other, in which case, that they can neutralize the budget issue. And if that timing works, and if staff agree with that, I would like to just move that we go ahead and delay this vote so that we do it in conjunction with the summer school vote.
Are you making a motion?
Yes, I made that as a motion.
So you're making a motion to delay the vote?
To vote for the program of studies in conjunction with the summer school program.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Can you please do that officially?
Yeah, second.
Okay, any comments?
No, that was, I think I just gave the rationale. It fits within the timeline, and it neutralizes the budget concern if it is the case that the summer school program could come with a cost savings.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to delay the vote. So go ahead.
So, Mr. Byrd, would that compromise the things that you said you needed to have done in time?
Not if it is early December. Not if, I think you said that in the next opportunity.
We need to clarify. Here's the challenge. We have summer school coming for information on December 5th. We have the action coming on December 19th. If the vote ties today, then we take action on December 5th, which meets your timeline anyway. Well, perhaps you're going to determine that. If you want to align, what Dr. Cannon is asking is to align it with the summer school plan. And that means that we would vote on it on the 19th. But that means that you wouldn't have a final decision till the 2 days before we start winter break.
That would present problems for the hard copy printing of the document and the course request forms that go out. Okay. Wouldn't be impossible, but it would be
be challenging. And so if the motion passes tonight, there's an opportunity at the next board meeting for a motion to come back from another board member to act on this. So there's still an opportunity for this to be passed December 5th. So we should vote.
Thank you, Ms. O'Grady, for the clarification. I'll withdraw the motion. If it doesn't work, there's no point in the motion.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kennan, I appreciate that. So we'll move forward with the motion at hand. May I have a motion for the program of studies?
I have a motion, Chair Talento. I move that the board approve the changes to the middle and high school program of studies as presented and as listed in the documents accompanying the presentation. I further move that the following revisions be included in the program of studies document. First, the paragraph titled Alternative Course Selections on the program planning page of the POS will be amended to read, all courses listed in the program of studies are available for students' request. When completing the final course schedules, courses that have fewer than 15 students may not be offered based on student interest and budget considerations. Therefore, proper planning also includes consideration of alternative course selections. Scheduling conflicts may necessitate scheduling alternative course selections. If a course is canceled at the home school, a student may enroll in the course at another school in the county, provided space is available. Transportation may need to be provided by the parent. Every effort will be made to accommodate student interests and needs when courses are canceled or conflicts occur. In some cases, additional budget considerations may require that courses may not be offered in a given year, and impacted students should select an alternative course. Additionally, courses with insufficient enrollment may be offered through distance or online learning. Second, the following statement will be added to the introductory statement for each curricular area. Note, courses that have fewer than 15 students may not be offered based on student interest and budget considerations. In some cases, additional budget considerations may require that courses may not be offered in a given year, and impacted students should select an alternative course. Additionally, courses with insufficient enrollment may be offered through distance or online learning.
Is there a second? I'll second the motion. So are there any comments on this motion before we move? Okay, hearing no comments, we are now ready to vote on the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. Motion does not pass. Motion is tabled because it's a tie vote, 2-2. So the motion will be brought back to our next board meeting on December 5th.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. We appreciate the presentation and the information. Okay, we are now, Mr. Byrd, before you walk, or I can actually direct this to Ms. Johnson. Ms. Johnson, if you can let us know, if, due to the DOJ settlement and any other issues with ensuring that we're aligned with our schedule for the program of studies, can you just let us know if we need to call a special meeting to act on this prior to the December 5th meeting? We would appreciate it.
Yes, I'll plan to do so.
Thank you. We are now ready to hear our information items. The first is the retirement of selected school board policies. Ms. Johnson.
I'd like to introduce Mr. Zach Pope, and he'll do the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson, and thank you, School Board. I'm here to present, as we discussed in June, the restructuring and updates to all of our health and safety, now titled Safety and Security Policies. There are 4 policies that were affected by that restructuring that need to be retired, as shown on the screen right now. E2, E2.1, E2.2, and I-10.3 have all been restructured and associated under the new structure and are being proposed for retirement.
Thank you. Do we have any speakers? Okay. Colleagues, are there any questions or comments? Okay. I actually have some questions. And first, I want to apologize to you because I know that you brought this to us, and I actually even have my memo with the packet back in March. I know how much work you put into this. And then you shared it with us as an information item on June 18th.
Correct.
So that was shortly after my surgery. I went back to this board meeting and realized I left before that item because it was my first board meeting back and it was a long night.
Absolutely.
And then in reading it, I did miss this. So I apologize because I should have caught this in March and then in June. but in March I had a kidney biopsy to see if I could qualify for this transplant, and then I did it in May. So just the timing was bad for
You're
this
perfectly fine.
conversation. So I'm going to apologize ahead of time. But I have concerns about 2 of the deletions.
Yep.
I noted that you're suggesting deletions because these were implemented into policy E-3.31.
And the associated
PIP, and the
APIPs.
associated PIP, right. So the
Correct.
policy actually doesn't mention these specifically, but the PIP goes into it a little bit more.
Correct. If you reference E3.31 as adopted by the board in July, it does identify the 8 core areas. And the
Yes.
PIPs each themselves then identify the compliance items under that.
Correct. And so I'll start with the counseling crisis management.
Correct.
So I did note that in our PIP for E-3.31, it states that we have a crisis management plan.
Correct.
And it's just a short paragraph about school crisis and emergency management, and that we have a program pursuant to relevant state and federal regulation and in alignment with the emergency management accreditation program.
Correct.
So is our counseling crisis management part of that program?
Correct.
Did
It
we
is,
change
it is an appendix to the school emergency management plans. Those plans are exempt from public record, which is why you have a boilerplate language in that PIP. All of the content from the I-10.31 around counseling has been moved in as of August in enacting those new policies from July into those plans.
Because they're part of an emergency plan that we have, that's why they're exempt from public.
Correct.
And so that's why we put it in policy this way.
Correct.
So I just wanted to clarify that. I was not here to ask those questions. So we still have a crisis management program very much like this, if not even more rigorous.
Correct. Just to further explain, in June when this was presented for info, the realignment and restructuring these policies not only were to bring them into current day and age, but also to make sure that we are in alignment with what should be exempt from school vulnerabilities to protect our students and employees.
Excellent. Okay, so then I'm okay with that one. So this one, I was been keeping my eye out on this because when we were working on the SRMOU back in 2017, I think the threat assessment team was mentioned in the DCJS document, and I can't remember what the acronym stands for, so. And it's not DC at all.
Correct.
So I think it's Department of Criminal
Justice Services, it's a
Right.
state agency that monitors accountability.
So at the time, we did not have a policy, and I remember having a conversation with Dr. Murphy about, we need a policy on the threat assessment team. So I have a very specific recollection of this policy. So when I saw it for deletion, the reason I remembered is because I remember reading it in code. I studied what that said. And the code still exists that says each local school board should adopt policies for the establishment of threat assessment teams.
Correct. So our current policy, E3.31 PIP 1, establishes that we shall have and what we establish as a central threat assessment team, and the program document is signed by the superintendent at the time was Dr. Murphy last fall, establishes the actual program guidance, membership, and so forth. So the actual policy document that we have is outlined in the E3.31 PIP 1, establishing that we will have a program and team.
Well, so it's kind of vague, and that's the concern. And the challenge that I have is, so in our PIP 1 emergency management, it talks about a threat assessment program, and it says each school shall have a threat assessment reporting and triage process as outlined in the school division threat assessment plan. The school division shall maintain pursuant to the threat assessment plan a central threat assessment team.
Correct.
So it mentions a team, but the challenge I have is that per code 22.1-79.4, it talks about threat assessment teams and oversight committees. And in our threat assessment team policy, we actually talk about establishing an oversight committee, and then it talks about the actual, that this is really focused on behavior, student behavior, and assessing students for threat. And so I'm concerned about, because code is saying that we should adopt policies for establishment of a threat assessment team, we actually do not have a policy. Because it's not in our policy, it's in our PIP, and it's a very tiny mention in our PIP that we have a central threat assessment team. And then in the code, it actually is very specific. It talks about each division superintendent shall establish for each school a threat assessment team that should include persons with expertise in counseling, instruction, school administration, and law enforcement. And then it goes on to delineate in a lot of detail how that works, which we actually have in the threat assessment team policy. So
Correct. So
that's-
I can share with you, Chair Talento, the actual threat assessment plan document. Again, that is an exempt document from public record that has been shared with DCJS to ensure compliance before the package was submitted in June. There is the latest guidance from DCJS allowing for a lot of flexibility, and school divisions and DCJS are looking to our lead as we have redesigned this process to help other school divisions. So we are still in compliance with moving forward with that retirement as we move those documents off of a more public record and more exempt record as allowed by law.
Okay, so the goal is to, this threat assessment team work is actually in existence in our threat assessment plan.
Correct. And as the current policy that's been adopted, E3.31 says that we will maintain all of those things in compliance with law, then our PIP documents state what that means and how we do that in brief public fashion. And our plan document that is available to staff and to the board is that exempt document that outlines it specifically tactically how we do that.
Okay, so I appreciate that. So then the challenge I have then is two things. It's this code, the particular code on threat assessment team, is not referenced in our actual policy, the safety and security. So I would like us to add that to the policy because
Not a problem.
it will show that we actually recognize the code and we understand that we would need a threat assessment team. And then the other piece is, I couldn't exactly find where it talks about how we comply with the laws and codes in our policy specifically. So that's a concern that I have, is that when I read the code and it says that the shall adopt policies, even if it's a line that said in accordance with applicable laws, we are, we are satisfying legal requirements through our plans, which are exempt under this in accordance with applicable laws. And so I will read it again for that, but if not, I may request that we make an amendment.
Not a problem. I believe we added boilerplate language between the info and the action to that extent as requested by the board. So we'll double check that just to be sure.
Right, and I did skim the policy when I was looking for something that talked about a threat assessment team or a reference to it. So those are the only two things, and then I'll work through Ms. Johnson or maybe the policy subcommittee to determine if adding that reference to the safety and security policy it has to happen through an amendment, or if it can just be added, because it's not, I'm not sure about that.
Sure.
But that's helpful. So then that has really helped me to determine how I'll move forward next week. Thank you.
Not a problem.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. So this will come back for action at our next meeting. Now we will hear the proposed fiscal year 21-2030 capital improvement plan direction. Ms. Johnson, would you please introduce staff?
Good evening, Mr. Chadwick. I'm going to turn the presentation over to you, please.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Good evening, everybody. So I'm pleased to present the proposed direction for the 2021 to 30 capital improvement plan. The FY 2021 to 30 capital improvement plan will support the school board's top priorities, in particular increased achievement for all reporting groups that shows progress towards eliminating the opportunity gap. It will also be connected to the strategic plan, in particular a core value of stewardship, which is manage our resources to honor the community's investment in our schools, create safe, healthy, and environmentally sustainable learning environments, support civic and community engagement, and serve current and future generations. Performance Objective 20, APS departments, finance and management, facilities and operations, teaching and learning, and planning and evaluation will collaborate to plan innovatively, cost-effectively, and within budget to meet 100% of student seat needs through permanent and temporary facilities based on 10-year projections. And the strategy to manage available resources and assets efficiently, cost-effectively, and equitably, and the strategy to provide high-performance learning and working environments that support universal design for learning standards. The school board directs the interim superintendent to prepare the fiscal year 2021 to 30 CIP to balance the need for increased student capacity, the locations where the capacity is most needed, and the school years by which the increased capacity is most needed, with available debt capacity, such that debt service will not exceed 9.8% of the annual operating budget in any given fiscal year. The school board further directs the interim superintendent to base the FY 2021 to 30 CIP upon the 2019 Arlington Facilities and Student Accommodation Plan, the AFSAP, to include capacity-generating capital projects that are already under construction and for which the design process has already commenced. Those are the Education Center Renewal Project, the Transportation Services Expansion Project, and the Arlington Career Center Expansion Project, which includes increased space for the Arlington Tech program. To also do propose capacity-generating capital projects for new facilities and expanded or renovated existing facilities, essential capital infrastructure projects needed to support APS operations, adequate funding to maintain existing facilities, and funding required to support APS collaboration with Arlington County government on conversion of natural grass fields to synthetic turf. School board directs the interim superintendent to propose new capacity-generating capital projects in the FY 2021 to 30 CIP to address seating capacity needs identified in the 2019 AFSAP. That includes for elementary schools, increasing capacity as soon as physically feasible, preferably by school year 2024 to 25, to address enrollment growth, particularly in the urban corridors, with the Roslyn-Ballston corridor having the first priority, the Columbia Pike corridor having the second priority, and thirdly, the Richmond Highway corridor. Middle schools to increase capacity as soon as fiscally feasible, preferably by school year 2024-25. High schools to increase capacity, again, preferably by 24-25, by focusing on additional capacity already included in the FY 2019 to 28 CIP at the education and career centers, and to coordinate with current elementary school planning process to inform the interim superintendent's proposed CIP. The school board directs the interim superintendent to conduct the following design studies to support development of the FY 2021 to 30 CIP. These are studies. They will not necessarily be selected, but they provide us with the basis for knowing the issues associated with developing a particular project and the estimated total project costs escalated to the year that it would be finished in. That will be included in the CIP as we make that balancing between the number of seats needed, where they're needed, and the dates at which they're needed in compliance with the 9.8% cap on debt capacity. So I'll go through these, and they're actually arranged by the Roslyn-Ballston corridor, the Columbia Pike corridor, and then the other infrastructure projects. So the first of those is Arlington Traditional School. You will notice there's a column there that designates who owns the site. Almost all of these are owned by APS. Some of them are owned by the county. And then there is a column that estimates the number of seats that will be added with a recommendation for what the actual capital project would be, or the studies would be. We've noted how those projects relate to recent CIP projects that we've completed, and then we have estimated costs of the design studies, which will be refined after they've been approved by refined downwards after they've been approved by you. So the first one there we have is Arlington Traditional School, which of course is not quite in the Roslyn-Ballston corridor, but right at the end of it. And that would be to study expansion or redevelopment for additional elementary capacity. The numbers there are based on a capacity of 725 to 750 students for elementary schools. That could, of course, be changed. The second one is the Heights. The Heights doesn't provide capacity, but as you know, we have a temporary firehouse on the field for that school. Their original proposal was to construct a field above a parking deck and covered entrance to the lower level, which would lead directly off 18th Street. And the parking was as much to create appropriate entrance for students who have, students and parents who have disabilities, mobility disabilities, I should say. So we're proposing two things there. One is to basically complete the original design, and the other one is to just build a field and a covered entrance. The third one on there is the Quincy Street property, and there are actually two options there. One is to look at buildings 2 and 4, which, as you know, have been offered to APS by the county manager for instructional use. And the other one is to look at building 4 for relocation of facilities and operations, shops and offices from the trade center, which falls in place in line with a later study that we propose. When we move to the Columbia Pike corridor, we have Barcroft. Again, that would be a study to either expand or redevelop the school. That could be for 290 or 300 students. Same options for Campbell. So there are essentially going to be two studies, and we will be able to compare what the difference would be between adding and renovating to the school and replacing it altogether. There are issues, of course, with where the students go when it's replaced altogether. I'll address that in a minute. And then, of course, we have to include the Career Center project in that, which is already in the previous CIP and for which that BLPC, PFRC process has already commenced. Also in the Columbia Pike Corridor area, we have Kenmore Carlin Springs. And what we're proposing to do here is to study the implications and cost of parking between 65 to 80 buses on that property. We, as you know, we are running out of space at the Trade Center for buses, and every year we need more. It's becoming more and more crowded there. At Randolph, the proposal again is to do a design study that looks at whether it makes more sense to add to that school or possibly replace it altogether. And then at the Virginia Hospital Center, which obviously is now owned by the county, and we do understand from the county that the hospital building that is there now will be demolished within the next year or so, to construct a temporary school, an elementary school, for about 500 seats using relocatable classrooms, possibly an inflatable gymnasium. These are things that we have consistently thought about, are consistently suggested to us by members of the community. We really don't know what this would cost, so we need to find out what it would cost and what the implications are. I think we will find that the costs will be such that it probably doesn't make sense to do the swing space unless it's going to be used for several schools that would cycle through it. But we will see when we find out how much it will actually cost and what the implications are. Additional capital investments of fields, as I mentioned earlier, and there what we're really trying to do is to make sure that we have the right figures so that we can be aligned with the county's CIP for field replacement. As you know, almost all of the fields are shared with us, and we are having much more success with synthetic turf fields in terms of utility than we are with the old-fashioned grass fields. A minor construction, major maintenance. The school board has always, for many years now, been very supportive of maintenance of our buildings, which we appreciate deeply because our buildings are in good condition and they are operating to provide those high-performance learning environments that are in our strategic plan. And then at the Trade Center, we are proposing a study for partial demolition of the building so that we can create more bus parking. And that is related to the Carlin Springs parking because we really can't do all that work without having somewhere to put the buses while we're doing it. And that also would be contingent on moving the facilities and operations, shops, and offices to Building 4 or somewhere else, but Building 4 is where we're looking at now at the Quincy site. So we have had for some time a fund that has been set aside for capacity planning. It currently has $614,000 in it. The estimated cost of the design studies proposed that I just went through is just under $400,000, and that leaves just under $220,000 available for future or additional studies if we find that we need them. Again, there is more information on the CIP process at Engage, and members of the community are welcome to go there for the latest information. The timeline, we are right now at November the 19th with information on the CIP direction. We will bring it back to you for action on December the 5th, unless otherwise directed. And then we work all the way through completing the design studies at the end of February, in March, so that in March we will be able to feed into the CIP planning and information that we use to develop the financial plan from the Career Center Working Group. You are scheduled to approve the concept design for the Career Center in March with any updates in cost. And then through June, we have a bunch of work sessions after the interim superintendent proposes this CIP at the beginning of May, leading to the vote on the CIP at the end of June, and of course the bond referendum on Election Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chadwick. I appreciate the presentation. Are there any speakers?
Yes, we have one speaker. Monica Day.
Hello, good evening. Today, I come to speak as a former APS immersion student, as a resident of Arlington County, as an immersion teacher in APS, and as an Arlington Education Association member. While the latest draft of the CIP direction that we saw today does not make reference to the pre-boundary process or to moving Key from its current building, I'm still very concerned about our priorities as a community when drawing boundaries. Schools around our nation today are still very segregated 20 years after busing programs ended. Unfortunately, APS is no exception. Many of our schools are racially isolated with over 90% white students, while some of our schools are racially and or economically segregated with high levels of non-white students and or economically disadvantaged families. Segregation in schooling is in large part due to segregation in housing. That is a much larger and more complex issue than we can change with the boundary process. However, there is a growing body of academic and policy studies that show how attendance boundaries can exacerbate segregation. There's research that shows that prioritizing only walkability and neighborhood schools can blur the lines between intentional and unintentional school segregation. While walkability and neighborhood schools are important and commendable goals, research shows that neighborhood schools and uncontrolled or improper implementation of choice schools tends to further segregate districts. There are, of course, exceptions to this. Immersion programs, for example, are a choice program that tend to integrate. Armed with this knowledge, we have the power to ensure that siting of new schools and the redrawing of boundaries has a net integrative effect. I urge the school board and the community at large to find a balance between integration, walkability, and neighborhood schools. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Colleagues, do you have any comments or questions regarding the presentation? Mr. Goldstein?
Yep, thank you. I guess I have a question and a comment, I guess. So the list of studies that you've got there, so in the third column from the left, approximate seats added, it's all, I think it's all elementary schools, and let's say, take the first one, and adding 260 to 285 seats would bring us up to about 750, right, at that site?
725 to 750.
Okay, and I think the rest of them are about the same, bringing
Yes.
it up. Okay, so, and why are we targeting that level? Is that part of the ed specs?
You mean 750 students?
Yes, a
It
building
is-
size of 750 for elementary.
It is where we are now and what we have done on recent schools. I believe if we're going to change that, that becomes a teaching and learning issue as much as a facilities issue.
Okay, so on the facilities side, it would have to align with the projections, I'm assuming. We don't want to build a school of, I won't even use a number, but something above 750 if we're not expecting, a commensurate increase in enrollment.
I think it would probably be the other way around. The enrollment and the projections might suggest a larger school, but then it becomes an issue of instruction rather than necessarily the number of seats that are to be provided.
Okay, all right, well, I'll think
If
about
I
that.
may, would also add, there has been some, I think, concern in the community that schools are designed for a particular program. We have been very careful in the last, certainly as long as I've been here, to make sure that the schools we design are as adaptable as possible to different programs. And so an immersion program would work just as well in one school as it might in another school. The one thing we know is that we have to be able to adapt our designs to change. That seems to be the one constant in education.
So let's go back to the seat size, at least for elementary. So I guess it must have been sometime after 2012 when Discovery was decided upon to have, I think the capacity was 630. So sometime after that, then the decision was made to target 725 to 750.
It was around, yes.
And how was that done? Was that done in conjunction with teaching and learning to, determine that size would be implementable?
Frankly, I don't remember exactly how we did do it, but it wasn't done without reference to teaching and learning, and there was a fair amount of discussion around it. But the feeling was that would not be too large an elementary school for us to manage in the way that they, or operate in the way that they wish to.
Okay, so I just have a comment here, and that is, if you go to slide 6, so all three of these, or the first three bullets, say increase capacity, preferably by 2024, for elementary, for middle, and for high school. Now, we all know we don't have the money to be able to do that. So I'm looking for there to be a recommendation consistent with slide 4, if you want to go to that one. Now, there is a solution set here that would encompass all 3 or 4 of those statements. There is a solution by school year that identifies a location that has a particular student capacity need. Maybe it's elementary, maybe it's middle, maybe it's high, and then, of course, does not exceed 9.8% of the operating budget. So I would ask that when this comes back for action, you have this slide drive what's in slide 6 and not just kick that can down the road, because we're going to have to deal with it at CIP time anyway, whether it's elementary or middle or high school whose capacity increases by 2024.
So, and remove 2024, 2025 from this slide? Is that your suggestion?
Yeah, I think that's confusing on this slide.
It would be probably need to remain for the high school, because that's what in the current CIP for that project.
Okay.
But,
okay, and I think we say that on a previous slide, jumping off from the CIP and the existing AFSAP.
yes, it mentions on
Right.
this slide, number
Right.
5, the projects that are in the current AFSAP that are underway.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Kennan?
Sure, and I think we're definitely going to have a conversation about if language is going to be changed, because the need is there, and I understand that we might not be able to afford what we'd like to do, but we do have the need, and this is also an expression of that. So I want to ask you, and I do want to thank you for also being neutral on the question of elementary and middle, because we need both. I know projections are going to get updated, and we can get more into how we prioritize that later, but I felt like you were neutral on not expressing that we have the need for one over the other at the moment. But I want to ask you about that. I know we heard from someone on our facilities advisory committee who had mentioned that in defining these studies for additions, which I think are a great idea, they're not the only idea we would like to have on the table at the moment. I think as we start the process, we might want to think about just plain building another elementary school or building a middle school. So I just want to be sure that at this point in the process, with this direction written the way it is, and with funding these particular studies, are we precluding the possibility of deciding that what we'd like to do first, for example, is to build a new 750-seat elementary school? Do we need a study to cost?
I think there are two questions there. Right now, we have not identified, so you're talking about a new elementary school. So yes, that will be wonderful, and it probably would be the most cost-effective thing to do. But we don't have a site for a new elementary school that we've identified in the areas where it's needed. In other words, we don't have a site on the Roslyn-Ballston corridor, and we don't have a site on the Columbia Pike corridor.
If the reason right now is that we don't have a site, our JFAC has asked us to charge them to start the search for a site. And I believe it's, if we're talking about building something 5 years from now, that you don't think there's time to, if it's what we wanted to do, and I would like us to be as flexible as possible at this point so we can have a full discussion.
So what we have done in previous CIPs, and we did it in the last one, is say we're putting aside the funds for a new school, or I think we had one for a renovation of an existing building, and that may well be how we end up making the recommendation to you in May for the outer years of the 10-year CIP that we're developing.
I guess the question is, do we need we're funding, you're proposing that we fund a number of studies to do additions. Would we need a study to price that new elementary school if we do want to put an elementary school or a middle school?
And if that happens, we would add we have some funds available, and we would do that. It would probably be an exercise that would take the schools that we've done already and project them into the future as to when we felt they would be, what year they would be needed.
So does this direction allow for that to happen if that's what we decide to do this spring? That's what I'm trying to
I think if you wanted to make that clear, we might add something that says that other studies may become needed as we proceed through this process, so that it's clear that other things could be added.
So I would just like to share with my colleagues, as one board member, I would like at this stage for the language to allow for any of those possibilities. I do think the additions are a likely direction, but at this point, I'd really like us to have the different possibilities on the table.
One of the issues about the schools that we've identified for additions or replacements is that they are our smallest schools. So we get the most number of seats when we add. And they are sites that we're in control of.
Thank you, Mr. Chadwick. Thank you, Dr. Kennan. Ms. O'Grady?
Thank you, Chair Talento. I would agree that it would be helpful to have an understanding of what we may have to what we might be looking for in terms of cost if we were to decide to build a new school. Even if we decide that this is not the right time to do it, it may be helpful to understand the potential cost, especially if the cost for doing that study might be relatively low because we have just moved ahead with plans to build another school, Reed, and we're coming off of the heels of opening Fleet. So perhaps there is something that would be affordable that could help us understand the cost as we potentially can be working with JFAC to find a location. The other thing I wanted to just share is I am intrigued by the swing space proposal for figuring out how much it would cost to potentially do a swing create a swing space if we were to decide that we wanted to add on to schools. About 20 years ago, I was a parent who was in a swing space. It actually was the Wilson Building. And as we were renovating Drew, and at that time, the number of seats that was considered really large at that point was about 500, 550. So a swing space allowed schools to be able to get that renovation done in a much quicker fashion, which also limits the cost a little bit more and gives students the opportunity to be inconvenienced a smaller period of time. So if we're looking at potentially making some of our older schools more right-sized, I would say, for what we're building to currently, having a swing space property could be helpful with doing that in a much more expedited fashion. So I appreciate the way that the chart is laid out here, but I would also appreciate having the opportunity to understand what our CIP would need to look like if we decided to create a new school. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Grady. I actually agree with the comments that were shared about adding other studies may be needed as we move through the process, just so that we are able to be as flexible as possible as we move forward. And I also agree with Mr. Goldstein. It's a concern that I also have regarding the elementary school and the middle school piece on slide 6. It's been something, I may have even mentioned it at a work session, I don't recall, but I noticed it then. I'm concerned about our current CIP and the commitment we have there, and then having, stating that we would like something preferably by school year 24 to 25. I think increased capacity as soon as fiscally feasible is really our goal. When is it feasible? And I think it's sending confusing messages to our community when we know, and especially people who have been following our CIP process with a career centerpiece and so forth, and they know that that's set to open in 25. There's already discussion about, if we don't build a garage there, maybe some of that money can go towards seats. I just don't want them to, I don't want to cause confusion that we're looking to do something that we may not be able to do. By saying fiscally feasible, we are addressing that need. And, preferably would be tomorrow, actually yesterday, to be frank. That would be my preferable, because that's when we need them, right? So by saying fiscally feasible, I think it encompasses that. I recognize with the high school, that is aligned directly with the current plan that we have in process, with dollars that are already committed and have been spent. So I understand that, why that's there, and I would support that. But with the elementary, middle school, I agree with my colleague, Mr. Goldstein, that we should remove preferably by school year 24, 25 for those two items. And then I think those are the only, I think those are the two things that I have to say this evening. So thank you for presenting this for information. Are there, sure, go ahead, Dr. Cannon.
Sorry, I should have told you I had two. My other question is about the paragraph where you talk about the debt capacity and keeping our debt service below 9.8%. You could pull it up if people want to look at it. I want to remind everyone that the two CIPs before the most recent CIP, the county board did share its debt capacity with us so that we were able to go over that 9.8. I don't know how much, but it was over 9.8. We have a joint work session with the county board on December 3rd, which would be before we take this to action, And I would just like to suggest to my colleagues that this would be, knowing that we have this need and knowing that we need more money, more debt capacity sooner, this would be, I think, worthwhile at least raising with them. We've asked them, and they've said yes, and we've asked them, and they've said no in different, cycles. So would just like to suggest that before we finalize this language, we have that conversation with them and see if they think they'll have the space to help us a little bit. Looks like there's a staff response.
I'm not sure I have a response. The reason that I think we talked about putting this language in here was that we have in the past couple of CIPs tried to stay within that 9.8% limit. We haven't, but we've gone into the CIP planning process with an eye to keeping it at that level for a number of reasons. One, because taking it to the maximum doesn't give us any flexibility should things change for the worse in the future. And we don't want to be in a position where we have projects in the CIP that we're already into that then we're exceeding our 10%. And if the county doesn't have room at that point in time after making other decisions to help us, then we could be in some trouble. So that 9.8% gives us that flexibility to be under our 10% and not burden ourselves. The other consideration that I have in the position that I'm in is that the more we stretch up to the 10% or even beyond the 10%, the higher the debt service that we're going to have to pay every year for those bonds. And when we're talking about growing enrollment, the desire to provide compensation to our employees, and then putting debt service on top of it, we're starting to get into places where debt service is starting not to be $1 million or $2 million a year, but $5 or $6 million a year on top of what we're already doing. So we want us to be careful about how far out we go before we've even started. So this was kind of a break to say, let's start here and move forward as we have more information.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Any other questions? Okay. So this item will come back for action at our next meeting. Our next meeting is December 5th. So thank you. So we are now at new business. Board members, is there any new business? Okay, hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.